Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So it's Monday. We have a calendar that involves a bunch of folks who are in custody. We're having some technical issues here at the courthouse. They upgraded Odyssey, which is our case management system. And I don't know if it's because of that or lightning just happens to strike twice in Fulton, but none of the printers work, including printers that are physically connected to computers. So I'm gonna have to work off the calendar that's on my screen. That shouldn't delay anything. It just is gonna make note-taking a little bit different. And I may be bouncing between looking at you all and the calendar because I only have it as a PDF. I don't have a hard copy, but we still should be able to. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having trouble getting Odyssey up as well. So we'll just work through this.
Yes, we will work through it. I would assume you're not getting into Odyssey, and I would assume you cannot print anything. So if you try to send something to me on the printer, it will not work. There is an error message that talks about inability to access the accounting server. So whoever we have to pay $100 a page to, I guess, isn't getting the $100 a page, so it's not working right now. I know IT is working hard at it, and they've been working hard since early yesterday morning to get Odyssey going. I wouldn't want to be on that team right now. They probably haven't had a lot of sleep. I don't think that's going to interfere with our ability to meaningfully process this calendar. But if someone says, well, what's in the case file? The answer may be, we'll let you know a little bit later. So with that, let me take a quick look at the calendar because okay. Yeah, we are going to need to do it. Ms. Patel's here. That's great. Thank you. Good morning. So let's start by making sure, Ms. Martin, are you able to hear me? Yes, everything is good? Good. I'll let you know when you need to take something down. So far, none of this we need to take down. We're just getting situated. And it may well be that for some of the positions on the calendar, we don't need to take anything down. So I'll let you know when I say let's get on the record, we'll do that. We are live on YouTube right now. Should there be family members of defendants or victims' families who want to see and hear what's going on. Let me start by asking our colleagues at the jail, any reason we cannot go in the order the calendar is published? Should we go in a different order? What works best for the jail today?
Hey, Judge, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
I have position 7. We can start with position 7 first. And I guess over there at the jail, they are pulling the bodies so they can go to courtroom 2. So while they're doing that, we can start with position 7.
Okay, let me see. We'll need to figure out if we can get Ms. Henderson's lawyer on the phone. I'm not seeing him. I see Mr. Melnick is here. Ms. Hall, our prosecutor, is here. And then there are a few names I don't necessarily recognize. I don't know if they're lawyers or with the jail or admin, but I don't see Mr. Majeski.
I'll reach out to him, Judge.
Thank you. So, Sarge, we're gonna sit tight, and as soon as Ms. Henderson's lawyer joins us, then we'll take care of position 7. Thank you. And then it sounds like at Rice Street, they are still moving folks down to courtroom 2. Ms. Perez is on the call. So if we get Mr. Mania Sanchez in, we can jump on that. Mr. Melnick, which is your client?
Jabari Holly, Judge. I don't have a copy of the calendar itself, so I can't give you a position number.
It's short. He's number 5.
Okay.
So same with you. If Mr. Holly is available, we'll take care of him. So Mr. Franklin then doesn't have any cases on the calendar. He's listed as the attorney of record for Mr. Holly on the calendar, but good to know you're handling that. We will get to his case as soon as, how long have you been on the case, Mr. Melnick?
Like, I think I filed an entry about 10 days ago, if
Oh,
that.
just in time for final plea. I'm sure you and Ms. Hall have sorted it all out.
I was actually just sending you an email, Miss Hall, so just let me know.
Okay,
All right.
let me see. Okay.
You guys are free to talk offline if you want, because it doesn't sound like we are hitting this right away. And then we may have one guest. Mr. Marrero is supposed to show up here. He was told directly to do that. He can't claim he didn't have notice this time.
Mr. Melnick, just let me know when you send it because we're having all those issues and it's
Oh.
affecting our emails as well.
Yeah, I was trying to look up stuff over the weekend.
Okay. Oh, no, it just came. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Does anyone on the call have Jeremiah Lawson as a client? The attorney listed is Dante Hudson. I don't see him on this call. So that may be someone else we need to reach out to. Okay. Ms. Patel, you've got Murphy Phillips?
Yes.
And Anthony Carter?
Yes.
Motion to dismiss?
Um,
Not sure what that is. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll be on the case anymore.
Oh, dismiss you as opposed to the case?
Well, I've been fired and I think I'm
Okay,
hired.
we'll see. And then you have William Pearson?
Right, that'll be the negotiation.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure you are still, so in theory, you're on all three of those, but you may be rolling off Anthony Carter. Okay,
Judge,
yes, ma'am.
my phone was charging and I forgot to grab it. Do you have the meeting information?
I bet I do. Hold on one second. Okay, meeting. You ready?
Yes.
ID number
Yes.
862-6985. Hold on one second.
Wait, just say it again.
Oh, there we go. Let me also turn off this speaker. Boom. All right. Ms. Martin, can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor, yes.
Okay.
There's a little bit of
Sort
an
of,
echo.
or pretty well.
There's an echo, but it's not too bad.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome. We're just, we've got the Monday blues here. We're not much on the tech side is working, and we're missing some lawyers. That's all right. We'll get through it.
Okay.
The camera's still not working.
Do we need the camera up? I have my camera up because my clients will always be able to see me from my laptop.
Maybe we'll be fine with just audio. Why don't we, we'll get going once folks are ready at the jail. Union City is ready on us, but that's Mr. Majeski, who is not connected with us. And then as soon as they're ready in courtroom 2, we can jump in. Mr. Melnick or you will handle one of those clients. So we'll wait to hear from the jail. Ms. Nelson, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Judge.
Great, okay. I guess we should keep using this system then. If you're going to be using Zoom and you're the only lawyer coming in here, I don't know that we necessarily need the fancy thing, because you'll be able to see your clients that way. Is that your preference? Because the other option you have is to, you actually don't even need to go to the podium because the camera will pick you up.
Right. I think that the only reason we should definitely keep this is for the audio purposes.
Okay.
If I try to use this, the echo.
We get the bad echo. All right, we'll keep it in here. And then if they can figure out how to make the camera work, it'll just be a bonus video feed. All right.
Might have this plugged into the wrong place. I just-
Union City sent us thank you, Union City. We reached out to Mr. Majeski. Hey, the video is working now.
Oh, good.
Mr. Majeski, for some reason, thought the calendar was at 1. I don't think the number 1 appears much on the calendar, but the calendar is published for 9. We are trying to get Mr. Majeski on this call. We'll give him a few more minutes. If he doesn't make it, then he can explain to his client why we weren't able to work through her situation today. Ms. Hall, do you know what the plan was for people are coming in? Position 7, Kimber. Oh, it was going to be a bond hearing for Kimberly
Yeah.
Henderson. Were you ready to go forward on that?
I was, Your Honor. I am.
Okay. Well, we need her attorney in order to do it, but you're ready. Oh, looks like courtroom 2 is up. Are you all here for today's calendar? You are? Aaron Marrero. Oh, you're Mr. Marrero. All right. You sit tight. We'll get to you in a little bit. Thank you for coming by. Okay, courtroom 2, are you all ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Great. We look at our calendar here. I think we can go, the one case we can't start, position 1, Mr. Lawson, we're tracking down his attorney. So do you have all the folks on the calendar, or is there a particular order you want to go in, sir?
Who's next on the calendar, sir?
Then Murphy Phillips.
Here we go.
Great. You ready, Ms. Patel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
One quick question. Do you want them to view all the titles like this, or would you rather have the speaker focus on the speaker where you can have the speaker really big?
Big screen?
Yeah.
Right there. Let's have it be the speaker. Thanks. All right, Ms. Martin, are you ready? Let's go on the record. This is position 2 on today's jail calendar. It's case 18 SC 157235, State versus Murphy Phillips. Are you Mr. Phillips?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Phillips. I'm Judge McBurney.
Good morning.
Mr. Phillips, your attorney is Ms. Patel. She's with the Public Defender's Office. You should be able to see her on the screen. She has a mask with, what are those, lemons?
Lemons.
With lemons on them. She's representing you for the purposes of this revocation hearing. Mr. Phillips, before we get into any substance in your case, you have the absolute right to have Ms. Patel sitting by your side, which unfortunately would require you to come to court, which we're not able to do right now. I need to make sure you are waiving your right for the purposes of today only to have Ms. Patel next to you, and you're okay having her appear remotely like this.
Yes, I haven't had opportunity to talk to her but once though. And she didn't have a file in front of her. When I spoke with her, she told me that she was going to get back with me. She found out what the state was talking about the offer, but I never heard from her since then until today.
Okay.
I'm all right with her handling the case though.
Say that last part again.
I am all right with her at her position where she's at and me right here.
Okay. Well, here's how we'll handle it. We're going to figure out why you're in jail, what the issue was with probation, and then we'll hear what the two sides, the prosecutor and Ms. Patel, have to say about a possible resolution. If you have questions about that, if you want to talk about that with Ms. Patel, I can move you virtually into a private conference room with Ms. Patel so that the two of you can speak, and I can't hear it, the prosecutor can't hear it. So if you need to have a private one-on-one because you've got questions about what we're going to do, we'll make that happen, okay?
Yes, sir.
Great. So let me see if I can pull up the petition in this case. It's on the calendar. Yep. All right. So Mr. Phillips, your petition alleges that you were not at the address that you had on file when they tried to track you down. And this was basically a, where is Mr. Phillips? He got released, he didn't report, and then probation had some trouble locating you. You understand your role is to make sure probation can track you down with whatever your current address is, and that's not how it played out. So this is what we call a technical violation, not new charges or anything like that, but it's real important that you let probation know where you're laying your head at night, and for whatever reason that didn't happen, they couldn't find you, and so a warrant was taken out. Ms. Patel, tell me what you know about the situation and what you think ought to happen in this case.
So, Your Honor, Mr. Phillips, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The state and I have a negotiated resolution. We would like to revoke 30 days, commute that to the time served, reinstate his balance. Condition is that he enter and complete the Michael and Michael program. And so for context, Your Honor, Mr. Phillips is in custody on a new case as well. And so the attorney on the new case had set up this treatment program for him, and he was recently accepted about 2 weeks ago. The plan for the new case is to release him on bond. And then once the case is indicted, basically it'll be a checkup to make sure Mr. Phillips is doing everything he needs to do in the program. And in addition, because this is just a revocation on technicals, not the new case, If Mr. Phillips is not in compliance with the program, Your Honor would have the ability to revoke him further.
Okay.
But the program, just some information about Michael, they deal with clients with substance abuse and mental health. They've got 24/7 staff that reside on the campus, a full staff of nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists. They can also provide, at the court's request, urinalysis results. They take them twice a week. So we think that this will be good. The reason that Mr. Phillips at the time was not where he should have been, we had put him into the Georgia Works program, was that his son was unfortunately murdered, and it obviously took a toll on him. And so Huey is ready to get back on his feet, and hopefully this program, hopefully he won't have any other tragedies, and we'll be able to continue to do the program.
Okay. Mr. Phillips, it sounds like you've got a good opportunity that your lawyers have found for you joining the Michael and Michael program. This is original Michael. This is the same Michael?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. What are the new charges that Mr. Phillips has?
It's a burglary
Okay.
for taking liquor from a car.
Okay. And it's a CP case right now. It's unindicted or unaccused.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Mr. Phillips, when was your son killed?
18,
The 18th?
2018.
Have they arrested anyone in connection with it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. That must be very difficult. Want to focus on you moving forward. What I think I understand the recommendation. I'm going to ask a few other people some questions, then I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hall, do you agree with the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Crawford, how much time remains on Mr. Phillips's sentence?
Judge, he has 1 year and 6 months remaining.
All right. Mr. Phillips, how long have you been in jail?
4.5 months.
4.5 months?
Yes, sir.
Is that when you got arrested for the burglary about 4.5 months ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you ready to participate in this program?
Yes, sir. I just made some poor choices. When my son got killed, I was just under a lot of pressure, and I chose some bad. I made some bad decisions how to handle the situation. I
Okay.
was getting high. I should have never.
Well, I don't have your new case. I have this older case. I think you actually took a plea in front of a different judge, but I've inherited her cases, and I'm ready to sort this out. If you think you understand what the recommendation is, do you feel like you understand it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any questions about anything?
No, sir.
Do you want to speak with Ms. Patel more, or are you comfortable going forward?
I'm okay.
You're okay. All right. Well, Mr. Phillips, I do find that you violated the terms of your condition, the terms of your probation by going what we call AWOL. You were hard to find. Ultimately, you got locked up, but you weren't staying connected with your probation officer. I understand better that there was something real complicated going on in your life. I'm going to follow the joint recommendation, which is that I revoke 30 days of your probation. I'm going to give you credit for time served from when you were first arrested. You've done 4 months, so you've already done the 30 days. So you will not be held any longer on this warrant. You still need to sort out the bond situation with your burglary, but I think they were waiting for you to sort out probation because they couldn't really give you a bond that would help you in any way in the burglary case. I'm going to reinstate your probation, so you're going to have about 18 months of probation left, and I'm going to add a special condition, and that is that you enter into and complete the treatment program with Michael and Michael.
Yes, sir.
So if you walk away from that, you decide that's not for me, you'll be violating your probation. If there's a reason why you think you need to get out of the program, you'll want to talk to your probation officer about that so that it's a joint decision. Understand?
Yes, sir.
Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Patel, anything else for Mr. Phillips?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Hall?
Nothing further from the state.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you.
So what I'd like to do, if it's all right with the jail personnel, is that Mr. Majeski has joined our call. And I think that way we could do Union City. Is that all right with Rice Street, or does Union City need to wait in line?
Hey, Your Honor, position number 3, Mr. Sanchez is gonna need an interpreter.
Okay, well, why don't we line an interpreter up while we take care of Union City? Is that okay?
That sounds good.
Thanks.
All right.
So, Ms. Nelson, I don't know exactly how we're gonna do that. Any ideas?
I think that we have someone on the line that's gonna be the interpreter, but I requested one, so let me check into that.
Okay, it could be. I don't recognize all the names on there, but if you look into that, I think what we'll do is switch to Mr. Majeski's case, which is Ms. Henderson. There's position 7. Can you hear me, Ms. Henderson?
Yes.
Great. I'm Judge McBurney. Your lawyer, Mr. Majeski, is on the call. Good morning, Mr. Majeski.
Good morning, Judge. Good to see you.
Good to see you. My understanding is that we're having a bond hearing today with Ms. Henderson. Is that right?
That was my understanding, Judge.
Okay. Ms. Hall has told me she's ready to proceed on that. Ms. Henderson, we're going to get on the record now. This is position 7. It's 19 SC 169005. And you are charged in this case with kidnapping, armed robbery, aggravated assault, trafficking in heroin, and some gun offenses. You've got a co-defendant named Mr. Reeves. Normally, I could look all this up and see what's going on with Mr. Reeves, but sadly, things aren't normal right now with our technology here in the courthouse. So I'm going to have to rely on the attorneys and others to let me know what's happening with the case. Mr. Majeski, I'm going to let you start letting me know about Ms. Henderson and the case. If you happen to know if Mr. Reeves is in custody, if he has a bond, that's a relevant fact for me as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Judge. Start off with my client. She's 39 years old, lifelong resident of Atlanta. Her whole family lives here, including her mother, sister, aunt, cousins, and a brother. She has 3 children, 13, 15, and 17, that she takes care of on a daily basis. I don't believe she has any holds on her when she is not locked up. She's actually pretty entrepreneurial. Right before this unfortunate situation, she was about to launch her latest business of running a food truck like we see around Atlanta. If she is released, she's got a job that she can have that's going to be waiting for her at a local restaurant called Mimi's. And she will be living in Atlanta. And I've got an address I could provide the court if you ask. As far as what's going on with Mr. Reeves, I don't know, other than I'm pretty sure he's still in custody. This particular case, I believe Mr. Reeves, based on the evidence that I had seen, was actually one of the violent aggressors. And Miss Henderson, if she was involved in all, was involved in a much more minimal capacity than Mr. Reeves or any of the, as far as I know, yet to be defendants in this particular case. Having said that, I think she's a very good candidate for bond. Like I said, she's got ties to the community and no other communities, dependents that need her, a job that she can have, and a stable place to live, which is more than, unfortunately, as the court knows, I'm able to supply about a lot of defendants that I ask for bond on. So with that said, I asked the court grant bond in this case in an aggregate amount of about $50,000.
Okay. Ms. Hall, Well, let me ask Ms. Crawford, does Ms. Henderson have any criminal history as far as your research shows?
Yes, Judge, she's currently on probation in Barrow County for selling and distributing cocaine. She's not active with Fulton County. She has a first offender case with Fulton County. So she just has that one case in Barrow County.
The first offender from Fulton County, what were the charges?
Possession of cocaine,
Okay.
2007.
Say that again, what was the date of conviction?
2007. It was July 18th of 2007.
07. And then is it Bartow County you're saying she's got a conviction?
Barrow, B-A-R-R.
Oh, Barrow County.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's open and active, and that's for distributing cocaine.
That's correct.
All right, are you aware if there's a warrant for her?
I'm not able to see a warrant.
Okay, all right. Ms. Hall, good morning.
Your Honor, the state will ask that you keep the defendant in a no bond status. I'm not sure if you know any of the facts of this case, which are not that important in this bond hearing, but just to let you know what happened. Ms. Henderson was friends with the victim in this case, Mr. Tobias Clark, and they had some type of transaction that is being disputed as to what Mr. Clark was called over to her house to receive money for. But nevertheless, when he arrived to her house after being called over, 5 gentlemen from her bedroom came out and tied him up, beat him for hours, while she stood there and tried to convince him to give them the information they were looking for. They were looking for money and different assets of his, knowing that he had money. He wouldn't give that information up. This went on for hours. Eventually, they put him in the back of a car, took that vehicle to a location on the other side of town and shot that vehicle up. Mr. Clark was able to get out of the vehicle unharmed, ran, I think he only had his boxers on, ran through some woods where he eventually got help from the police and paramedics came out. Mr. Clark is very traumatized from this incident. Anytime that myself or Ms. Rolak speak to him, he's very emotional. And this is something that happened last year, but this is something that he thought that he wouldn't survive. So I understand that Ms. Henderson is, innocent until proven guilty, but the facts that the state have right now shows that she had a big part in setting Mr. Clark up and contributing to what happened to him, including the kidnapping and everything else that night. So we're asking, especially with her already having an active case, that she remain in a no bond status, Your Honor. Oh, and I'm sorry.
Ms. Hall, are there other indicted co-defendants, or it's Mr. Reeves and then the others are not yet identified?
It is Mr. Reeves and the others aren't yet identified.
Okay. And do you know if Mr. Reeves has a bond in this case?
He does not, Your Honor.
Okay. All right.
And Your Honor, I'm sorry. I forgot. Ms. Rolak has a victim statement whenever the court allows for her to read that.
Of course, I'll get to that in just a moment. But I want to make sure I followed what you said, Ms. Hall. Your understanding of the allegations and the discovery that you've obtained, that Ms. Henderson reached out to the victim, Mr. Clark, and invited him over. And it was upon his arrival that Mr. Reeves and others emerged from a room in Ms. Henderson's location to then do all the things that happened to Mr. Clark.
That is true, Your Honor. And for me not to leave out any important facts, Mr. Reeves also lived at that location. So it would, of course, the defense would say that that was his house, but it was her house as well. And she invited him over.
Okay. All right. Ms. Rolak, good morning.
Good morning, Judge. It says, good morning, Judge. My name is Tobias Clark. And Tobias, T-O-B-O-Y-E-S, Clark, C-L-A-R-K. And on June 10th, 2019, I became a victim of a violent crime. June 10th is the day that I came to fully understand the antic my life flashed before me. I was brutally attacked and my assailants which include Kimberly Henderson, had plotted my demise. This is a day that has been etched in my brain and has haunted and altered every aspect of my life. I now find myself constantly checking my surroundings. I wake up at night checking locked windows that I checked just 2 hours prior. It is difficult to explain. The word vulnerability best describes how I have come to internalize and define the person I am now since this crime. Physically, I appear to be this blessed victim because my scars no longer exist on the outside, but emotionally, I am torn and still in pieces. I suffer from insomnia, anxiety, and heart palpitations. I struggle to adapt to what I feel is my new normal, which is avoiding people for the most part. I had to relocate and basically go into hiding. I asked for a special request from my landlord to terminate my lease early because living alone was just too challenging. I was not able to sleep and was convinced on multiple occasions that the other assailants associated with Kimberly Henderson would find me because not all of them have been brought to justice. Kimberly and these other criminals introduced me to a level of evil I could never have imagined. This is a different kind of evil. While those people were beating me and planning my death, they seemed almost elated to be inflicting pain on me. I had this sinking gut feeling they have done this before. They just seem to be in their comfort zone, if this makes sense. I worried constantly about my safety and the safety of my family. I went from this individual who I believed was resilient to this person whose sense of security was shaken in a way that I have not yet been able to overcome. I feel like a shell of the person that I used to be. I believed that I was strong and could overcome most of life's disappointments and obstacles, but this is different. I try to tell myself that you're good, that this is a nightmare, it will be over, but I vacillate between positive self-talk and anxiety attacks. I no longer venture out to enjoy my life. My shelter in place started months before COVID-19. There are times I experience lonesomeness, but I perceive this as the lesser of two evils. I have nightmares about the potential of Kimberly Henderson's release. She will reconnect with her criminal friends and seek retribution, revenge for involving the police. They will attempt to finish the task. This is my greatest fear. I am pleading with the court to help keep me safe by not releasing any of them. This initial assault happened in Ms. Henderson's presence in her home. She coldly turned a deaf ear to my pleas for help. She seemed almost excited at the prospect of me dying. It was obvious that she had masterminded this crime. When given the opportunity to show some form of humanity, she failed miserably, even in the presence of her children. Yes, she made a conscious decision to engage in this violent act while her children were merely several feet away. The latter just demonstrates her level of evil. Ms. Henderson's actions to conspire with organized criminals to kidnap, rob, and murder me changed my life in a way that I could never have imagined. There are some internal wounds that I am still not ready to share. I lost my sense of security, dignity, and that piece of myself that connected me to my family and friends and defined me as a person, as a man. I wish that all my scars would have just been physical injuries, because by now I would have felt whole again. I just ask that neither of these people with a thirst for crime be released. It may be too late to prevent my emotional and physical damage, but true justice for me is to plead to the court that neither of them be allowed to negatively impact another person's life. For me, this would equate to my near-death experience will not be in vain. My ordeal did not end when I was released from these people because I carry it and I try to cope and make sense of such a senseless act. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rolak and Mr. Clark, for that insight into what you've been going through. Mr. Majeski, I've got a couple questions and then anything you want to add in closing since you're the movement here. I remarkably am able to get into Odyssey, the new version. I can't see any documents, but I can see what's in the docket. And there was a motion for bond filed in July of last year. And there's not been a whole lot of other activity. It's like some discovery has been sent to you or a lawyer for Ms. Henderson. When did you become Ms. Henderson's lawyer?
Probably would have been about July last year.
Okay. And then there was a leave of absence filed in late December. It doesn't look like there's been any activity. Are we only now having the hearing on your July bond motion? Or have you had a chance to argue in front of Judge Reeder bond for Ms. Henderson?
For various reasons, this motion was never heard, Judge. The first motion for bond was not heard.
Okay, but reasons that you agree with, or should I be at least partially apologizing to you and Ms. Henderson that it took a year and a month to get her a bond hearing?
Reasons I agreed with.
Okay, all right. But you've reached the point, and Ms. Henderson has reached the point of, look, enough is enough. We do need to be heard. Circumstances have changed.
That's exactly what happened.
Okay, got it. Were you aware, Mr. Majeski, of the Barrow County case?
I knew she was on probation somewhere, and one of the reasons I thought it made a sense to file a bond motion now is it's been over a year and no one's put a hold on her. Okay. So it seemed like a good time.
Sure. Last question I've got, then I'll hear from you, anything you want to add. The charges in this case seem to tie together based on the sort of outline that Ms. Hall provided of someone wanted to get information from Mr. Clark. And so I get the crimes of violence and the gun offenses. The trafficking heroin doesn't fit in. What's your understanding of where heroin fits into what's been described?
I think that's more of a Mr.
Was it found on Mr. Clark, or where? I'm not asking you to reveal anything. I just don't understand that allegation doesn't fit in that fact pattern.
I believe that was more of a Mr. Clark problem.
Okay. Ms. Hall, what's your understanding? I'm not attributing the drugs to anyone. I'm just wondering where in the series of events you described the heroin fits in.
Yes, Your Honor. There's heroin found both on Mr. Reeves when he was arrested, and I'm sorry, not when he was arrested. He was in a vehicle when the police went out to the home after Mr. Clark reported this incident happening at Ms. Henderson's home. When the police went out there, Mr. Reeves was in a vehicle with someone else. When they saw police, they backed up and ran. Inside of that vehicle, heroin was found, trafficking amount. And then once the police got more information as to this happening inside of the house and they got a search warrant, found blood and all that, the search revealed trafficking amount of heroin inside of the house. So there was heroin.
Locations. The vehicle Reeves was in, and then the house that Reeves and Ms. Henderson are connected to.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Mr. Majeski, anything you want to say in closing? Well, I'm sorry, I keep saying you're going to get to do that. Do you feel, Mr. Majeski, that you've got all the discovery in this case so that if these were more normal times and we had a final plea, you'd be in a position to say, hey, we're ready to take it to trial if Ms. Henderson doesn't get an offer she likes?
I believe so, Judge. I don't, in all candor, the court know what more the state might have that they haven't provided. They've been pretty proactive on this.
Okay. Ms. Hall, is there anything you're aware of that might be outstanding?
I will add, yes, Your Honor. There is a recorded device that I was given by co-counsel, Ms. Snyder. She's the attorney for Mr. Reeves. And it was given to my predecessor. We're trying to extract whatever information is on there so that I can distribute that out to the correct party. So that is something that I'm still working on. That happened. I received that right before the pandemic, and then we haven't been in the office since. So it's probably still sitting in my technical, our tech office, because he was going to extract that from for me. So I would check into that, and I'm sure it's not a hard task. It was an issue of someone had misplaced the charger, not our office, but it just wasn't a charger connected to it. So he was going to have to try to manually get the information off of that. But other than that, everything else was provided before I got on the case.
What did Ms. Snyder represent to you was going to be on this device? Why? Presumably it was helpful to Mr. Reeves, or she wouldn't give it to you.
Right.
What was it supposed to be?
My notes are in Odyssey, which I can't read right now, but don't quote me, but I believe there's a statement, some type of interview on that audio. I can't tell you specifically because I wasn't able to review my notes to see what it was, but it is some type of audio recording interview that I was supposed to be pulling off of it and listening to it myself, but I haven't been able to.
Okay, great. Hold on one second. Ms. LeBeau got it all to work. She had to figure out how to turn it on. Oops.
So it's not loud enough, right? The issue.
I would like it to be louder. That would be great. I just don't know how to do that. Okay. Mr. Majeski, anything you want to add to the consideration of bond for Ms. Henderson?
Sure, just a couple things, Judge. As you heard, I mean, that heroin is clearly probably more of a Mr. Reeves thing, especially since some was found in a car when he was, and some in the house, and they were joint occupants. Also, I think that my recitation of Miss Clark, if she was involved, probably being the least culpable in this, still stands. Also, she's been a trustee down at the jail for about a year, ever since she's been there. So I think even for a case like this, she's a very good candidate for bond. And I ask you to grant a bond in the amount requested.
Okay. Ms. Nelson, you may have no more visibility than I do into the docket. I'm able to, like I said, pull Odyssey up. I can't see any documents, but it does not look like this case has ever been on a final plea calendar. Are you able to see anything different?
No, well, I don't have access to Odyssey, so no, no, I have no other information.
You can see even less than I can see.
Yes.
Judge, I think you put it on a final plea calendar in February. I recall coming to your courtroom on an unrelated matter, and you told me the case had needed to be continued until March, and then the pandemic hit.
Okay, and you may be exactly right. It's not showing, let's see. There was a final plea calendar in December of last year with Judge Reeder. I don't know. When I took over the docket, so that we could get an update from Ms. Snyder on behalf of Mr. Reeves and from you. It may have been we had to bump it. But it sounds like you feel, Mr. Majeski, you got what you need in the case. I suspect Ms. Snyder has said the same thing, and she is just waiting on the state to digest whatever is on this device that the state hasn't worked through yet. Ms. Hall, what would it take? I appreciate that in theory the office is closed, but of course people in and out of the building, especially in small numbers. Is there a way for you to get an update on whether we can harvest something off this device?
Yes, I reach out to that our tech guy and see if we can pull that information off. And as I was sitting here thinking, I believe that what's on that device is a proffer that Miss Snyder was a part of, just from memory. Just sitting here listening, I believe that's what that was. And so I'll get an update and give that information to Ms. Nelson and let the court know.
Okay, great. So Ms. Henderson, you've been very quiet. I appreciate you being patient on this. I am not going to set a bond at this point, but what I am going to do is make sure that this case gets on a final plea calendar for me as opposed to Judge Reeder. And that's going to be the deadline for the state to have figured out what's on this device, either because Ms. Snyder provides it again, or the state is able to pull it off the device and listen to it. But it is time for both you and Mr. Reeves to be given a final offer to decide, I want to work this case out or I want to go to trial. And then we need to move the case forward that way. And if we get stalled out, I will invite Mr. Majeski to reach out again to say, Judge, we had final plea. That didn't sort the case out, and it doesn't look like there's going to be a trial anytime soon. And we can talk about bond again. But these are serious allegations. I'm concerned about the fact that you were on probation when this situation came up. I appreciate Mr. Majeski's observation that if Barrow County was real interested in you and your case, they would have issued a warrant. But that's also assuming that Barrow County has figured out what's happened here. I don't know if you were subject to supervision out of Fulton, then there may have been a breakdown in the communication between who was supervising you here and who's responsible for your case in Barrow County. I'll ask Ms. Crawford just to look into that. But we're going to leave the status quo for now, Mr. Majeski. We'll get this case on a final plea calendar in the not too distant future. And as I said, if that doesn't sort the case out, then if you feel it's appropriate to revisit the bond, let's do just that. All right?
All right. Thank you, Judge. And that completes my business with you. Can I be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day, Judge.
Thank you. I think that completes our business at Union City. Thank you for connecting us with Union City. We're going to return to our the remainder of our calendar. And I see that we have an interpreter on, but I also see that we have Mr. Hudson on. Mr. Hudson, can you hear me?
Yes, Judge.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Ms. Chavez. Mr. Hudson, is the revocation involving Mr. Lawson a negotiated revocation, or is it something that we need to have a hearing on?
I believe you'll have to have a hearing, Judge. I am actually going through and piecing together Mr. Lawson's history. It's kind of convoluted, but I believe a short hearing would be necessary.
Okay. And what I'm going to do is we will get to Mr. Lawson. That'll be the case we do after we have an interpreter online, and there's also someone on the calendar who needs our interpreter services. So we'll take care of that position. Then we'll turn to Mr. Lawson and sort out what we're going to do. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, Ms. Chavez, you're going to need to guide me through this. I think, as I understand it, we have to do this consecutively, because whatever I say, you then need to translate for the defendant in this matter, who is Mr. Mania Sanchez.
Correct.
Okay. Then let me see one other thing.
This morning.
Great. Ms. Perez, can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
Great. So Ms. Perez, are you ready to go forward in Mr. Mania Sanchez's case?
Yes, Your Honor. I have not had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Hall, but for today's purposes, yes, I believe we can go forward, and we'll briefly discuss unless there's something new that she needs to provide.
Okay. So it's a final plea. When you say, Ms. Perez, that you haven't spoken to Ms. Hall yet, meaning you have not talked about a way of resolving the case?
Your Honor, we had spoken, I believe, earlier this year, Judge. We have not spoken since then. We've sent out information, emails and stuff, and I have not received any response regarding, the last we spoke of was regarding a background check for Mr. Manilla Sanchez. I don't know if that's been done. I haven't been able to speak with Ms. Hall regarding that. If it has been done, I don't know if results have been sent to my office, unless my email address is, unless she has it incorrect or anything, but I haven't received anything regarding an update as far as that. But her and I have not been able to speak since the whole pandemic began, Judge.
Okay. Well, before we get on the record, Ms. Hall, what's been going on with the case from your side?
Your Honor, I think there's just a lack of communication between the two of us. I haven't emailed. I've actually called and spoken with an assistant a couple times that was said complicated case that even if we had a conversation, probably wouldn't have resolved today. I don't know if you remember the facts of this case, but this is a case where husband shot wife and it may have been a mistake. So there is some digging that the state is doing at this point, because we have statements from the victim after the incident, none during the incident. The officers did not speak with her. The only person that she spoke with was the EMS. Yes, me and Ms. Perez spoke about the background check, which has been done on the defendant, that resolved what I was looking for. As to whether this is something that has happened before. Since then, we've moved on to the EMS reports. There was, we requested the medical records. We have not received them yet, but we specifically requested the EMS report because the victim told us that she told the EMS information as they were traveling to the hospital that we need to kind of corroborate what the defendant and the victim are saying happened, since no one was in the room but those two. So the state was going to ask for if we could possibly do a reset on a final plea, not to the fault of the defendant, but because we are having to look in this case a little differently than we have to with other cases. I just don't want to get this wrong. I don't know if it was a mistake or if it was intentional. So I'm just looking into other options to try to figure it out, Your Honor.
Is the victim in this case okay in terms of the, I mean, has she gotten better? Did she lose an eye? What's your understanding of the nature of the injuries?
My understanding, I haven't gotten the medical records back yet, but it's my understanding she was shot in the chest. But I know she is better. I've spoken with her a couple times. Ms. Rolla has spoken with her. I believe she's watching as well. She told me that it was an accident, and so she's talking, she's better. But you know how that goes. I don't know what happened. So this is a case where we have little evidence, we have statements, and we have an action. And so it is taking me a minute to try to figure this out, Your Honor.
Your Honor, if I may. Your Honor.
That was Ms. Perez.
Oh, yeah, just a minute, Ms. Perez. Have you requested the medical records and just not received them?
Yes, Your Honor. We haven't received them yet. I know you're going to ask me what hospital. I was pulling that up for you this morning, but Odyssey is giving me problems. So I don't know which one it was. I did request this before the pandemic because me and Ms. Perez talked about it. So we knew what was ahead of us. But because this case haven't come up, I apologize. I haven't circled back around to see what's going on with the medical records. I did send my investigator an email to get a status update, but I haven't heard back from her yet.
So I feel like a little bit of a broken record here. I don't know when this calendar was published on the 27th, so 2 weeks ago. And it's a short calendar, it only has 7 positions. When you, Ms. Hall, saw position 3, it helped me understand why one of your first steps wasn't to say, uh-oh, medical records, I better figure out what the situation is, rather than sending an email today to your investigator saying, oh, what's going on with the medical records?
No.
I understand that they're hard to get. That's not my point. My frustration is not, why don't you already have them? It's, this calendar was published 2 weeks ago, so that was actually 2 weeks of time just to get that little thing of, this was the hospital, and they're not providing medical records, or they're available, my investigator hasn't been able to pick them up, or something other than, oh yeah, you know what, medical records. And now that we're talking face to face 2 weeks after the calendar is published, I realize I need to find out what's going on with medical records, so I'll get back to you. Getting back to me is what should be happening now, as opposed to, or Ms. Nelson needs to get an email in a week, because when we're talking about the calendar, we're discussing the kinds of things that ought to have been looked into when you got the calendar. So into fussing, but what part didn't happen during the last 2 weeks?
The part, Your Honor, I mean, just to be completely frank with the courts, you know that we've been in court. So the way I handle calendars, no matter when they come out, I handle them in order. So Friday was when I first touched this calendar, and when I emailed my investigator, because as you know, we had court on Thursday. So when I was done with dealing with that calendar, then I moved on to the next calendar, even though it came out 2 weeks ago, and we're in court 3 or 4 times a week. I'm not able to jump around. And if it's an easier case, like me and Ms. Patel, we dealt with position 2 a week ago, but some cases aren't that simple. So I sent the email to my investigator. She hasn't responded, but if I spend an entire day trying to figure out one case, then you're going to be fussing at me about the other 6 cases on the calendar. So I just try to level my time as much as possible and, do as much as I can, Your Honor. I apologize. The harder cases are becoming harder to deal with now in this pandemic, and the easier cases, as you can see, we're getting rid of them. But it's one of me and a whole bunch of other people dealing with 1 or 2 cases. So I'm trying the best I can, Your Honor.
Okay, I appreciate you are. I guess my thought is, when you get the calendar, I'm just looking through our calendar, you were in court a few days between the 27th and today. There were also some days when you weren't. I don't envision it as an all-day project. It is, here's the calendar. All right, here's Mr. Mencia. What do we need to do? Medical records. We shoot an email to the investigator when I get the calendar saying what's going on with those. Not an all-day process figuring out, do we have them yet or not? And what's the holdup if we don't? So I appreciate that you're busy. So am I. But this is not an all-day project to figure out where the medical records are. It doesn't sound like we can advance this case today. Ms. Perez, what did you want to add?
Yes, Your Honor. With regards to the injury sustained by Perla, which is his wife, they've been together for over 20 years, Your Honor. They have minor children. He is the sole provider of the family. She's been struggling significantly since he went into custody. We did provide pictures, Your Honor. What happened was she wasn't shot directly in the chest, Your Honor. What happened was the bullet, when it discharged from the firearm, it grazed her left nipple and went up at a diagonal and grazed the right side of her, after her neck on the right side shoulder, pretty much. We did submit pictures, 3 pictures, Your Honor, showing her injuries that she provided directly to our office. My understanding was, from the last time I spoke with Ms. Hall, was that she was running a background check to make sure that this had not happened before. They've never had any domestic violence issues, Your Honor. They've been happily together for over 20 years, Judge. However, he did have a firearm, Your Honor. They have been the victim of a burglary where they reside in the Atlanta area. They had to purchase a firearm to protect themselves, Judge. And I submitted the pictures also of one of their vehicles that was broken into, and something was yanked out of their vehicle. I believe it was some sort of stereo system or, device to play music, radio or something with regards to the vehicle. But they've never had any issues together, Your Honor. She just really wants him to be released to come back home and start working and taking care of their children. But I'm just patiently waiting, Your Honor, to get, and I'm glad that Ms. Hall provided that update this morning. I really appreciate it. But they've had no issues. They've never had issues together. And it was literally an accident.
Okay, well, we're not sorting that part out today, but what I am going to do is have Ms. Hall, within 2 weeks of today, let you, Ms. Perez, and Ms. Nelson know what the status of the medical records is. And if they're stuck at a hospital, they're stuck at a hospital, but no update isn't what ought to happen on the final plea date. I'm going to ask our interpreter to share a little bit with Mr. Mania. This is a conversation that I am comfortable not having had translated. We weren't speaking substantively about the case, purely procedurally. Ms. Perez, you'll be able to update your client as well as his wife when you get off the call. But the interpreter was on the call only if we were having formal communications with the defendant. And I'm going to ask for her to just share with Mr. Mania a little bit, and then we will move on from here. Are you able to do that, Ms. Chavez?
I can do a summary, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mania.
Your Honor, I need to be, sorry.
Well, we're not taking this down, so
Okay. Okay.
This is just, if he had come into court, we just talked for 2 minutes, so.
Okay, buenos días, señor Manilla. Good morning.
Yeah, have you been able to understand any of what we've been talking about?
¿Ha entendido usted algo de lo que se ha estado hablando?
Poquito.
A bit.
Okay. Mr. Mania, we were waiting on 2 things in your case.
Estamos esperando dos cosas en su caso, señor.
One was a criminal history background check.
Uno era el historial de sus antecedentes penales.
Sí.
Yes.
We have that, and it is good news for you.
Los tenemos y es buenas noticias para usted.
Okay, gracias.
Okay, thank you.
The other is the medical records involving your wife's travel to the hospital and her treatment there.
El otro es los expedientes médicos de cuando a su esposa la trasladaron al hospital y
We don't have those yet.
y el tratamiento y no los tenemos.
Okay.
Okay.
But the prosecutor is going to tell us within 2 weeks where those records are.
La fiscal en 2 semanas nos va a dejar saber a dónde están esos expedientes.
Está bien.
That's fine.
Once we get the medical records, the prosecutor should have a better sense of what's going to happen with your case.
Ya cuando hayan obtenido los expedientes médicos, la fiscalía va a tener una mejor idea de lo que va a pasar en su caso.
Okay, está bien.
Okay, it's fine.
As soon as we get the records, the prosecutor will talk with your lawyer.
Y tan pronto obtengamos los expedientes, el fiscal va a hablar con su abogado
To see if there is a way to resolve your case.
para ver si hay una manera para resolver su caso.
Okay, está bien.
Okay, it's fine.
Your lawyer will be talking to you and your wife soon about next steps.
Su abogado va a hablar con usted y con su esposa acerca de cuál es el siguiente paso a seguir.
Okay, muchas gracias.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any questions?
De nada. ¿Usted tiene alguna pregunta?
¿Cuándo va a ser la siguiente corte? Okay.
No.
¿No va a
When
haber,
is going, perdón?
¿Va a haber otra corte o no?
When is going to be the next hearing? Is there another hearing or not?
There is. We are going to give your lawyer and the prosecutor a chance to see if they can work the case out. And the next hearing will be for them to give that announcement.
Okay. Sí, señor. Vamos a darle la oportunidad a su abogado con el fiscal y el fiscal para que hablen. Y en la próxima audiencia, ellos nos van a dejar saber cuál es el resultado de la conversación.
Okay, está bien.
Okay, it's fine.
All right. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, I have
Gracias.
¿Eso es todo?
Your Honor, I have a response as to the medical records.
Okay.
So I talked to my investigator who said she was having issues with her email address on Friday, but she said that she tried to give me a call. We have the medical records, which will be filed by my office. The EMS reports, which is the report that we re-requested from them, they're still, Grady, is still having issues giving us that. So she said that she went down there again on Friday and resubmitted a subpoena. So we have the medical records. Our issue is now the EMS, which is what I was looking for, because that's where the conversation was had. So update, I'll get the medical records filed and served to Ms. Perez, but the EMS records, we're still waiting for.
Got it. And your investigator will drop a new subpoena off for the EMS records?
She did on Friday.
Okay. And any sense of how long Grady takes to turn that around?
Well, they really have been doing an awful job during the pandemic. She just received these medical records and we ordered them the beginning of March, before the pandemic. And we just got these. She said they were in her box last week. When I emailed her, they were already in her box, but she received them that week. So that was like 3 months, 4 months. But EMS is different. They use a different, it's not Grady records, it is a service. So I think they come a little faster.
EMS?
The EMS records, yes. Because it is a system through Grady, but it is a different system of them ordering and getting records.
Okay. Well, let's do this. If they start taking too long, let me know, and maybe I'll enter a court order saying you need to disclose this information by date X, and that might move it along.
Okay.
Ms. Perez, anything else?
No, Your Honor. I appreciate the information with regards to that. I'm just trying to get this moving for Mr. Mania Sanchez because his wife is very concerned with him and wants him back home, Judge, but nothing further.
All right. I think we're all trying to do the same thing. So you'll get medical records in the next few days. When Ms. Hall has a chance to review those EMS records, that may be what it takes to have this be a negotiated resolution. If not, it may be that he wants to take a non-negotiated plea or that we have to take it to trial, but we'll at least get that information out soon, okay?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Chavez.
You're welcome, y'all. Have a good day.
You too.
Position number 4, Mr. Carter, position number 4.
Okay, can we do, we'll do Mr. Carter. Can we do Mr. Lawson right after that?
I'm still sending someone to try to go get him, Your Honor.
Okay, no problem. When you get him. So Mr. Hudson, they're still tracking your client down. So we will switch to Mr. Carter. All right, let me call up his files. All right, good morning. Are you Mr. Carter?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carter, your case is on the calendar for a final plea. Ms. Patel is here, and it sounds like you may have an announcement, Mr. Carter, about representation. Are you hiring an attorney?
Yes, Your Honor, because I didn't know about the final plea or anything that was going on in the case. I was trying to contact her during, when the pandemic happened. The last time I saw you, you was like, I didn't know whether my bond was denied or whatever. She told me it was denied. You was like, because I had the probation hold, that you'll let Douglasville deal with me. You'll get me back in there for my first appearance as far as the hearing. And then she contacted me Friday out of the blue. Like for the first time, I thought I was contacting her over several times, to get in touch with her as far as the contact to find out what was going on during the case. So that would make me want to get, a lawyer to represent me because I didn't know anything about a final plea or what was going on during this case until Friday.
Okay. Have you hired an attorney?
Yeah, my own family was looking into it. I talked to them Friday as well.
Okay. How much time would you like to try to retain an attorney?
I mean, I'm not sure because I'm here. Like I said, I had a job. I was doing security for like 5 years since I've been here. And I had other jobs as well. But, like as of now, for me, it's going to be hard for me to come up with to attain any type of currency right now because I've been locked up for like almost 7 months now. But with me, far as me as a person, I have drug usage problems in the past. Being that I've been on probation in Douglasville, I have had a drug usage problem since I was 11, 12 years old. My mother got stabbed in the head in front of me from her boyfriend, and that wasn't the most part. They end up being together after that situation still. So my mind was messed up mentally for a long time now. So drug usage was my way of getting through with dealing with the problem at hand, what was going on. I had to learn to adapt to it. My mother gave forgiveness to her future husband. He ended up marrying, they get married. So, and he passed now, but that been a long time ago. And, it's still just been on my mind since I was young doing drug usage. That's been the only thing in my past. I never been a violent person.
Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that. I guess what I want to do though is make sure we're moving your case in the right direction. Do you want to, well, let me ask Ms. Patel. Ms. Patel, do you think it would be productive, because we're not going to handle the final plea today, it sounds like, for you and Mr. Carter to try to connect? Or do you think it's more productive for Mr. Carter and his family to seek private counsel?
When I spoke to his family, it seems like they have the money.
Okay.
And that they were waiting on Mr. Carter to give them the information to the attorney. So.
When did you last speak to his family?
On Friday.
Okay. Mr. Carter, were you able to hear Ms. Patel?
A little bit.
So our system here is not perfect. Sorry about that. Ms. Patel spoke with your family as recently as Friday. And your family, what do we mean by family?
His mother.
Mom. Your mother told Ms. Patel that they were hiring you an attorney, and they needed you to provide some information to the attorney. And they, meaning your mother, made it pretty clear to Ms. Patel that she was going to be replaced by this new attorney. So my thought is we give you a couple weeks to nail this down and then set up a status hearing so that we get you and your attorney and the prosecutor all connected virtually like this to figure out where we're going. Does that work for you?
I mean, it'll work for me. I mean, me personally, I would love for the further the case if I can get some type of program for my drug users. That's the only problem that I know that I have, that I didn't had in my back, like past recently life. It's only been drugs. I've never been a violent type person.
Okay, I got you on that. I don't want you to say too much more about your situation, but I understand that you are in touch with the addiction issue and you would like help with that. And whether Ms. Patel is advocating for you or the lawyer that your family hires, that person can talk with Ms. Hall, the prosecutor, to make that pitch. As it stands, you're charged with armed robbery, and that's going to need to be dealt with one way or the other. Yep. Whether the state says, whoops, we had the wrong guy, or we think he should go and get drug treatment, or I don't know the facts of the case, and now isn't for the time for us to talk about them.
Did you receive my motions that I ended up filing because I wasn't able to get in touch with her during the pandemic? I filed 3 motions.
You have filed some motions, but motions that you file while you have an attorney are not valid motions. Your attorney speaks for you, whether that's Ms. Patel or the person that your family hires. So your motions have been put in the record, but your attorney speaks for you unless and until you say, you know what, I don't want any attorney. Mr. Carter is the guy in charge, and he's going to represent himself. That's not what your mom said, and I have not heard you say you want to represent yourself. So where we are right now is who your lawyer is going to be. But give me 1 second. Ms. Hall, tell me what's happening on the state side with Mr. Carter.
just most of the discovery has been handed over to Ms. Patel. There is one thing that I'm checking in on. If there was video surveillance inside of the actual store, and if there is, I will provide, well, whenever we sort out the attorney, I'll provide that to the attorney. Other than that, all the rest of the discovery has been provided to defense counsel.
Okay. So Mr. Carter, my thought is that we get you on another calendar in the real near term for to give you and your mom time to line up this new attorney. We can't really advance your case until we sort out, is Ms. Patel your lawyer or is person X your lawyer? And that's your role, not mine. You decide who your lawyer is going to be. You have an absolute right to an attorney. You've been provided a very capable attorney and a very experienced attorney in the form of Ms. Patel. But you're free, let me finish. You are free to hire the lawyer of your choosing if you are financially able to do it. And according to your mom, that was underway. So I think you and your mother need to speak, and then you need to talk with whoever this lawyer is so that he or she can enter the case and take over representation. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I was saying based on, it was just that I didn't hear from her during the, like when the pandemic happened, when it started. I heard from her in the beginning of like April when I was supposed to have the second hearing or whatever, April the 7th. And that was the last time, and I was constantly trying to contact her. So I was unaware of anything that was going on with the case. I didn't have anything bad to say, like far as her not representing me, right? But you got to understand, in the case that's going on with me being represented, I want to know what's going on in my case.
Sure. No, I understand. It's a very reasonable concern. The answer was not much was happening with your case because everything was shut down. We weren't able to move forward with much at all. And I know Ms. Patel was doing her best to stay in touch with the many clients out at the jail, but it was difficult because the jail was having some trouble facilitating access. The lawyers were not able to come to the jail, so they had to try to work the phone lines. Sometimes the phones weren't working. So the situation was not that Ms. Patel didn't care or wasn't trying. It's that it's complicated. And I hear you saying the same thing, that you just, things had gotten kind of dark and you were concerned. So why don't we do this? You talk with your mom, your mother, and decide which way you want to go. Stick with Ms. Patel or bring someone on board. But you need to give that final word because it sounds like your mother told Ms. Patel that there'd be a new lawyer coming in, and that means Ms. Patel should back off. But if that's not ultimately your decision, then Ms. Patel, I am confident, will plug back in and let you know what's been going on, which is not much because we can't bring people into court, but at least she'll talk to you about what might be next in the case. But really what has to happen first is you and your mother need to decide, are we bringing someone in or are we sticking with Ms. Patel? And then you or your mother need to communicate that to Ms. Patel so that she knows, does she move full speed ahead with you or does she hand everything over to that new attorney? Okay. Ms. Patel, anything you want to add?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So what we're going to do, Mr. Carter, to make sure we stay on this is I'll get you on one of my next Zoom calendars. That's what we call these things. So that you can give us an update about what's going on, okay? And that'll be, we have these a little more frequently than every 2 weeks. So that would be like 10 or 11 days from now. We'll try to get you back in here. That should be enough time. If it's not, you just need to let us know we're still coming up with the money or whatever the deal is, all right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hall, anything else?
Nothing else from the state, Your Honor.
All right, we'll see you soon, Mr. Carter.
Position number 5, Holly Jabari.
Holly, got it. Mr. Melnick. You're back.
Sorry, Judge, I had to kind of rejoin here.
No problem, you're here just in time.
Good morning, Your Honor.
So let's see, this is in theory on for a final plea, But Mr. Melnick, you were retained only recently.
Yes,
Why
sir.
don't you start? And we don't need to take this down, Ms. Martin, at this point. I'll let you know if we need to take anything down. Tell me what you see as the right next step in Mr. Holly's case.
So, Your Honor, Ms. Hall and I think have had some productive conversations this morning. I've told her some information that I've learned about the case since I've gotten into it. And she's made an offer to me. My request would be, if you would not mind, to reset it to the next closest available final plea calendar. Factually, the case is not complicated. Ms. Hall, I do have some questions. Just Mr. Franklin didn't have any forensics. I don't know if any forensics were recovered in this case or not, as far as like shell casings or anything along those lines. One issue in the case, Your Honor, so you can see he's charged with aggravated assault involving a firearm. There's an issue as to whether the victim may have been the primary aggressor in the case. So the shell casings might be significant or relevant for that purpose. Do you know, Ms. Hall?
I do not. It was my understanding that everything had been provided to Mr. Franklin, but I'll look specifically into that.
You don't mind.
There should have been, because there
Right.
should have been, and they should have been provided, but I'll check and let you know.
Okay, all right. So, Your Honor, with that being said, hopefully we can get that worked out pretty quickly and easily. He's been in jail a long time. Is it September 10th of last year, Mr. Holly? Is that right? Can you hear me?
September the 6th, sir.
September the 6th. Okay. So he's been in jail a good long time at this point. So I don't want to, I don't want to delay things too long just because I've recently gotten involved. Like I said, factually, the case isn't very difficult. So it is not going to take me long to get up to speed and to have a definite answer for you one way or another.
So, Mr. Melnick, it's a bunch of charges, but they all sort of flow from someone shot at someone?
And there was no, just so you know, nobody was actually shot. There was shooting at one another, but there was, as far as I know, Ms. Hall, there's no actual injuries to anybody. Am I correct about that?
That's correct.
Okay, so all the cruelty to children, that's because there was gunfire in front of kids?
That's correct, Your Honor. It was inside the apartment complex.
And then the criminal damage to property is, instead of hitting people, cars or buildings were hit instead.
That's
correct. 2 vehicles.
So this is serious stuff, and we're fortunate that no one got hit, but it's not that there is a deceased or someone who was maimed as a result of this. And you, Mr. Melnick, want to see if there is evidence that would support, I don't know if it's full-blown immunity or if it's just self-defense / mitigation, so that you can, in a more full-throated way, argue for what might, in your mind, be a more reasonable or fair disposition for Mr. Holly.
That's correct, Your Honor. It would not be full-blown immunity. Unfortunately, he does have a prior felony conviction, but I think we might have a viable self-defense claim.
Okay. Ms. Hall, I know we have a few of these from the DA's office. Is this one of the cases where there's another indictment, not in this courtroom, where the victim is a defendant?
No, we didn't charge him because we had witnesses there that said that the defendant started shooting at him and he returned fire in response to that. So we chose not to indict him.
Got it. So the state has concluded that it was Holly who shot first. Mr. Melnick wants to explore, is there any evidence to suggest the other person shot first or who knows what?
That's
so,
correct.
Mr. Melnick, I'm comfortable slowing this down a little bit so that you can see if there is anything else out there. My thought would be to keep this on the final plea setting. It's important for Mr. Holly to know that he is not likely to get a jury trial anytime soon. And so even if the recommendation from the state is that he remain in custody for a while longer, that's likely the outcome, whether he says, I want to go to trial or I want to take a plea. But I want to give you some time to pursue the avenues you want to pursue. You'd like to see this back for final plea, either the next calendar, knowing that our cycle is about 2 weeks and no guarantee that Mr. Holly would cut to the front of the line either the next calendar or the one after that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll get with Ms. Nelson and we will see if it would be in about 2 weeks or if it would be closer to the anniversary of Mr. Hawley's arrest.
You understand everything, Mr. Hawley?
I was
Can you say
wondering.
that again, Mr.?
So yes, I'm understanding everything, but I was gonna ask, was there able any kind of way I can request for bond hearing or something?
I'll be requesting that, Mr. Hawley. I'll
Yeah,
come.
so Mr. Melnick will talk to you about that. He'll let you know the wisdom or not of having a bond hearing, but you should know that's definitely part of his skill set, is saying, Judge, got to get bond on a case. We have lots of bond hearings with Mr. Melnick. That said, the purpose ideally for when you are next connecting with us from courtroom 2 there will be to see if this case has worked out. If it looks like you two are far apart, meaning the state is asking for something and you're real far from that, then the answer will be, Judge, we're not working it out, but we do want a bond hearing. So we'll do one of two things the next time we're together, either talk about bond again or resolve the case and go from there. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hawley?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Melnick.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, since I have you, can I ask you about one thing real quick? Something I've mentioned to Miss Hall.
Okay.
Judge, we'd submitted a consent order on a case. Jennifer Betzel is the defendant. It's indictment number 19 SC 171587. If that's not something you want to take up right at this moment, can we have a conference call about this sometime in the near future?
We can. I want to take care of the other folks who are there in courtroom 2. What you need to be prepared to explain when we do the conference call, and it's fine just being a audio only, is why Ms. Betzel missed court. I had asked Ms. Nelson to ask you that. I know she sent you an email to that effect, but I appreciate that it was consent. My question was, well, why did she not show up when she was supposed to? And why should I be so comfortable that next time she will? I'm sure you got a good answer for that. Now isn't the time to work through that. So if you'll reach out to Ms. Nelson,
I will
we'll gladly get a teleconference set up, and that can be any day.
Okay.
So as long as it works for Ms. Hall's schedule, I know she's got something coming up in the near term, but as long as it works with her schedule, we'll have that conversation. That was the hang up. That's the only reason why. Normally, hey, everyone agrees, but I thought that was a fair question. So.
It's a fair question, Your Honor. I can explain it.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep. Before we transition, so I think we're done with Mr. Hawley. Ms. Patel, Ms. Crawford has been asking about an address for Mr. Phillips because he needs to report to probation, and it sounds like he'll be living at Michael and Michael. So if you can connect with Ms. Crawford to get her that information.
And Ms. Crawford, I did send it to you in the chat.
Okay, and she may have gotten it. I just got a text from her saying, hey, we missed that piece. So you guys can check that. Okay. Yes?
I'm sorry. I have the address for the program that he's going to be going to, but I need his address so that I can tell him where to report, because he was reporting to the DCS office in Atlanta, but I want to make sure that he knows that he still has to report there.
So can we bring him back?
Who is it that we're talking about?
We're talking about Murphy Phillips. He may be long gone. We talked to him at about 9:20 this morning.
Yeah, he got. He's gone already, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll figure this out. We'll figure it out. I'll be more careful next time. I apologize. Okay, and you are?
William Pearson.
Great. William Pearson. All right. Are we going to end up being able to get Jeremiah Lawson? Because I want to. Pardon?
He's en route.
Great. Okay, don't give up, Mr. Hudson. He'll be here. All right, but for now, we're going to turn to Mr. Pearson, position 6. Before we go on the record, oh, this is a plea.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. All right. It may be you need to go to the podium. We'll see how clearly everyone can hear. They can hear you from there. Great. All right. Ms. Martin, you ready? All right. If you cannot hear, let me know because we're taking a plea in this case. Good morning, Mr. Pearson.
Good morning, Your Honor.
And same goes for you. If you cannot hear anyone who's involved here, raise your hand, do something, okay?
Will do.
Great. This is 20 SC 174339, State versus William Wesley Pearson. Mr. Pearson, you are charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault and giving false information to law enforcement. You are with us today because it sounds like you are in a position where you're comfortable entering a guilty plea. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Mr. Pearson, in normal times, you'd be here in court, courtroom 1D, with me and Ms. Patel. Ms. Patel's here in court, but she's not sitting next to you. I need to make sure you are willing to waive your right to have Ms. Patel sitting by your side during your guilty plea.
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Mr. Pearson, if at any time during the conversation we're having here, you need to speak with her privately, just let me know. And there is a way to move you virtually into a conference room where it's just you and Ms. Patel. I don't think something like that will come up, but if it does, we can accommodate a private conversation between you and Ms. Patel, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Hall, are there any reductions in this case, or is it a plea to the charges?
It's a plea to the charges, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Pearson, in just a moment, Ms. Hall, who's the prosecutor in your case, is going to put you under oath. Once you're under oath, it's important that you answer Ms. Hall's questions and my questions truthfully and completely. Will you do that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you're ready, Ms. Hall.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you should give in the matter currently before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
You may lower your hand. Please state your true, correct, and legal name.
William Wesley Pearson.
Are you at this time taking or under the influence of any alcohol, drugs, or medicine?
No, ma'am.
Is there any medication that you normally take that you have not been given today?
No, ma'am.
How old are you and how far have you gone in school?
42, GED.
Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you've been charged with the following offenses? 2 counts of aggravated assault and 1 count of giving false name, address, or birthday to law enforcement officers?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to those charges? And if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had enough time to speak with your attorney, Ms. Patel, about all the facts and circumstances known to you regarding the charges in this indictment, including any potential defenses?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you need more time to discuss this case with your attorney?
No, ma'am.
Are you satisfied with her services?
Yes, ma'am.
Counsel, do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
So wait.
Do you waive any and all defects in the indictment, including with respect to the defendant's name?
Wait for the purposes of this plea only.
And do you waive moving forward on a copy of the indictment?
We do.
Mr. Pearson, have you been arrested on these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
I ask because the state is unaware of any outstanding warrants that are related to these charges. Do you or your attorney know of any outstanding warrants related to these charges?
No, ma'am.
Has your attorney advised you of the minimum and maximum sentence to the charges that you're pleading to?
Yes, ma'am.
The minimum and maximum sentence for aggravated assault, object which is 1 to 20 years to serve, and the maximum for giving false name, address, or birthday to a law enforcement officer is 12 months to serve. Do you understand that this is a negotiated plea of guilty, which means the state will recommend to the court a sentence of, for aggravated assault, for both counts of aggravated assault, 4 years to serve 1 probation, and for the given false name, address, birthday.
Yes, ma'am.
The court does not have to accept that recommendation.
Sorry, Ms. Hall, you cut out when it sounds like Mr. Pearson was able to hear you, but the recommendation is 4 years to serve 1 year. Is that reduced to time served?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And then the balance probated?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And then for the misdemeanor, it's 12 months to serve, reduced to time served?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And were there any special conditions?
Just stay away from both victims.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
No problem. Mr. Pearson, do you understand that the court does not have to accept that recommendation? The court can sentence you to the maximum on any of these charges and can run those sentences consecutively or one after another.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand this is a guilty plea which is permanently recorded on your criminal history?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as other jurisdictions, including the federal courts?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand if you're currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on you entering a guilty plea today?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand if you're placed on probation of any kind, you cannot violate any criminal laws of any governmental unit or any special conditions of probation without being subject to revocation for the balance of the sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you're not a United States citizen, a guilty plea conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just as a conviction at trial would? And this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction, just as there would be from a conviction following a trial? For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, your right to hold public office, the right to serve on a jury, the right to obtain a passport, the right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony, which may carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you waive any and all defenses, including any mental health defenses, by answering a plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand if you went to trial, you have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're giving up the following rights: the right to a trial by jury, the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself, the right to confront witnesses against you, the right to the assistance of counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel, the right to the presumption of innocence, the right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence, the right to subpoena witnesses and compel the production of evidence, the right to have the charges against you proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and the right to appeal if convicted of these charges after a trial?
Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or promised you anything to get you to enter a guilty plea today?
No, ma'am.
Is it your decision to waive these rights and enter a guilty plea because you're in fact guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to the 2 counts of aggravated assault, object which, and the 1 count of giving false name, address, or birthday to law enforcement officer in indictment number 20-SC-174339?
I, William Wesley Pearson, plead guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with full knowledge of the charges against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you only have a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you only have 4 years from today for a felony charge and 12 months from today for a misdemeanor charge to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness of this guilty plea?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Your Honor, had this case proceeded to trial, the state would have proven, and Your Honor, I apologize, I do not have the actual address in front of me because of our Odyssey issues.
Yeah, everyone gets a pass today. I can't even see the indictment because I can't pull it up, and Ms. Nelson can't pull it up, so I know there are 3 counts, but normally I will have written down the date and ready with questions. So we're being flexible this morning. So tell me what you know.
Thank you, Your Honor. On January the 14th, 2020, in Fulton County, officers responded to a location in Fulton County where Grady had already responded. This was an incident where the defendant and one of the victims, Mr. Turner, Mr. Rashad Turner, they had a dispute over a pack of cigarettes, and that dispute turned into a physical fight. Another victim, Mr. Neal tried to break up the defendant and the victim from having this physical fight, at which point the defendant struck that Mr. Neal with a pole. The fight that occurred between Mr. Turner and the defendant, it was a fight that started from the defendant being upset about not having the cigarettes, or the victim not returning with cigarettes that he sent money. The defendant sent him money with to purchase. So when he didn't have the cigarettes, he ended up hitting the defendant in his head with either a stick or a pole. We haven't been able to determine from the victim what he was actually hit with, but Grady did check out both of the victims. They were ultimately okay. There were not significant injuries in this case, although there were bruises and scratches and superficial injuries that have healed since then. We have spoken with both victims, and even one of the victims' wife we've spoken with. They have not had contact with the defendant. They don't really know the defendant. This was an incident that just happened. They all at the time was homeless, and this was just an incident that ended up happening in an apartment complex. The defendant is on active probation, Your Honor, for a 19 SC case, 19 SC 164246. He has 1 month remaining on that case. I apologize, I did not write down what the charge was before court.
Cocaine.
Okay, I don't know if you're able to hear that. Ms. Patel said possession of cocaine.
I heard her. So for the reason stated, Your Honor, and because there wasn't significant injuries, we've talked to the victims. They don't want to have anything to do with the defendant. They knew they were upset at first, but now there's been so much time that has passed on this case as far as them being separated since January and haven't come into contact with each other. They don't know him. They're not familiar with him. We have come up with a negotiated agreement with the defense. He has been in jail in custody since January. So that's why we went ahead and did the commuted to time and the remaining on probation, Your Honor.
Okay. So do you know, Ms. Hall, if either Mr. Turner or Mr. Neal had to be transported to Grady? I know EMTs showed up. Did they have to go to the hospital, or they were treated at the scene?
No, Your Honor. They both initially went to the hospital. They went to Grady. They were transported.
Okay. But whatever the injuries were, they were treatable. They didn't have to spend weeks in the hospital.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Rolak, do you have any input from either Mr. Turner or Mr. Neal beyond what Ms. Hall just shared with us?
No, Judge.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Crawford, I know Mr. Pearson has one open case, the cocaine case ending in 246. Does he have any other Georgia felony convictions?
He has nothing else active, Judge. Priors, one prior out of Fulton County.
How long ago was that?
It's a 2019 case. It's inactive. It was possession of narcotics.
So your records show Mr. Pearson has 2 convictions, both out of Fulton, both 2019.
That's correct. And then he has one charge, a 2012 charge. Well, no, it's an 2008 case out of Cobb County, and then a 2013 case out of Fayette County. All of those are inactive.
Okay, well, that's what I'm getting at. So he's got 4 priors, one of which is open, but he's got a total of 4 priors.
That's correct.
Okay, the 2008 case, what was the lead charge?
The open case, 17 SC 155026, possession of narcotics.
No, I'm sorry, the case from 2008.
In Cobb County, that was a simple battery misdemeanor and then cruelty to children felony.
Okay, and the 2013 case?
2013 case is gonna be out of Fayette County. 1 count of entering vehicle, criminal trespass, and operating a vehicle without license.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, Ms. Patel.
Thank you, Your Honor. For the purposes of the record, the address that the officer responded to was 384 Sunset Avenue Northwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30314. The officer just failed to put it in his report. Your Honor, Mr. Pearson's case, in a lot of ways demonstrates the struggle of resolving cases during the pandemic. The complaining witness, Rashad Turner, had reached out and left a voicemail message on my phone early on, sometime in March, about wanting to, he did not want to prosecute and wanted to speak to me, but he's homeless. And so it became virtually impossible for our office to try to reach out to him, to try to talk to him about what had happened. And our investigator is immunocompromised, so we were not allowed to send him on any types of investigations to try to locate Mr. Turner. It took several months. Eventually, Mr. Turner showed up to our office to speak to someone at the front desk, who fortunately was able to speak with him and put me on the phone with him so I could talk to Mr. Turner. And that happened, I believe, last month. And then unfortunately, Mr. Pearson's case was rescheduled twice because the jail did not have him present for court. So he has spent a significant amount of time in custody, which, I apologize on our office's behalf because we were not able to move this faster. With that being said, my client spoke to the police, provided an interview about what happened. He basically talked about how this ended up being a brawl between these two other individuals. Everybody was fighting each other. My client had injuries that the officer took photos of. Both of the other individuals do have some violent history as well. Mr. Turner just wanted to move on from this. When we talked to him, he said that, it was a fight and that he didn't want to see Mr. Pearson sitting any longer, and that had really bothered him that he was still in custody and that this much time had passed. I believe that my client will do well on probation. This is, when we talked, he believes he will be able to stay out of trouble. We would ask that there's no stay away from the location because that's where my client lives. Mr. Turner just is transient through that area. From my understanding and speaking to him. And so, Your Honor, we ask that you accept this plea as negotiated.
Okay. And tell me why you say Mr. Pearson will do a good job on probation. Of course, he was on probation when this happened.
Sure. I mean, we have discussed in length how this situation escalated when it didn't need to. It was, it was a bad decision in terms of Mr. Pearson feeling that he was wronged and, he did not, something was stolen from him, but, the solution is to call the police, not to confront the individual. And so, when we had spoken, he was doing well, he had a job, he had stable housing, and I've been in touch with his wife, and I believe that when he gets out on the street that he has a place to go and he's got a support structure.
Okay. Mr. Pearson, you've been listening quietly. Have you been able to hear everything Ms. Patel just said?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
So tell me where you'll be living when you get out.
I'll be living on 855 Oak Street, Northwest, with my wife.
Is that over on the west end?
No, sir, that's right down the street, right here off Bankhead.
Okay. And is that a house?
Yes, it's a house.
Do you and your wife, are you renting it? Do you own it? What?
Rent, Your Honor.
Okay. How long have you been married?
I've been married 5 years now.
Okay. How did you know, if you knew, Mr. Turner and Mr. Neal?
My sister lives in that neighborhood, and I frequent her house over there, and they homeless, and you got a lot of homeless people come through that neighborhood.
So the address of Sunset Avenue, that's over where your sister lives?
Yes, sir.
You don't live there?
No, sir.
So any reason why you would need to be over around Sunset Avenue other than to visit your sister?
Yeah, just to visit my sister.
Could she come visit you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Did you know Mr. Turner and Mr. Neal before the day this happened? Like you'd seen those guys before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they weren't strangers to you?
No.
Got it. Does your wife work?
Yes, sir.
What does she do?
Retail.
Retail?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean?
She's a manager for Dillard's.
Okay. And what kind of work will you be doing when you get out?
Fire protection. I install sprinkler systems.
Okay, you're not a guy who rides the red truck and carries the hose. You put the sprinklers in.
Yeah.
How long have you done that?
I've been doing that for several years, Your Honor.
And why do you think you have the job waiting for you? You've been out of commission now for almost 8 months.
Oh, they got work for me.
Okay. They still have fires even during the pandemic.
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell me the case of yours that's open right now, meaning the one you're on probation for, was cocaine. Is that something you kind of struggle with, using cocaine, or what's going on the drug front? And I'll tell you why I'm asking, not to say, oh, you said yes, got to go to jail for 100 years. I want to make sure we are setting you up for success.
Yes, sir.
You got a job, you got a wife, you got a household, but if you also have an addiction, we ought to try to do something about that so that you don't get back in a rut.
I understand. No, basically I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And I was at the store. And when I came out the store, the officers entered the parking lot and the youngsters threw the dope. And I was right there.
Okay. All right. Anything you want to add, Mr. Pearson?
No, I want to appreciate Ms. Shiremel for her assistance, and Ms. Cassie Hall for coming to an agreement. And
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Oh, that's a good thing to say. Ms. Patel has been working hard to move your case along, but it's been complicated during these complicated times.
Yeah, and I just wish everyone stays safe and social distance and wear their masks.
Well, all right. You can be one of the spokespersons for the governor's campaign for smart use of masks and social distancing. Mr. Pearson, I find there's a factual basis for your plea. It does sound like everyone was going at it over these cigarettes. But in the future, you're going to need to step back and say, you keep the cigarettes, or I'll keep the cigarettes, or whatever the deal is. Just try to stay out of those kind of tussles. I also find that your plea is knowing and voluntary. Knowing means you've understood all the things we've been talking about. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
Any questions about anything anyone has said?
No, sir, Your Honor.
Okay. Voluntary means no one's forcing you to enter this plea, but you've decided that it's the right way to move forward in your case. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
All right, then I'm going to accept your plea. I'm sentencing you pursuant to what we call the Probation Options Management Act. And all that means, Mr. Pearson, is that while you're on probation, which you will be for a few more years, if you have what we call a technical violation, maybe you miss a meeting with your probation officer, or I'm just making this up, let's say you tested positive for marijuana. you and the probation officer will work through that. You don't have to come back in front of me. But if you get arrested for something new, that's the kind of thing that'll come back to me, okay?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
And it sounds like, Ms. Hall, there's no restitution, whatever medical treatment Mr. Turner and Mr. Neal received was sort of on the taxpayer.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. So, Mr. Pearson, I'm going to follow the joint recommendation here in your case, and I will sentence you on count 1 to 4 years to serve 1 year, and I will reduce that 1 year to the time you served. So you should get out in the next day or two. I would say you get out today, but there's going to be a little paperwork lag because our system is down right now. I need to sign some things in order for you to get out. But if you're not out by Wednesday, reach out for Ms. Patel and she will figure out what's going on, okay? Don't think guys too wide. Wednesday is only 2 days from now. So if you're not out by Wednesday, you start reaching out. The balance of your sentence will be on probation. So that's 3 years probation. And then count 3, which is a misdemeanor, I'll sentence you to 12 months to serve, but I'll reduce that to the time that you've already served.
Yes, sir.
There are going to be 3 special conditions to your probation. One of them is stay away from Mr. Turner and Mr. Neal. You see those guys because you're kicking it someplace and they walk up, just walk away. Just don't be around them. You got other folks you can spend time with or share cigarettes with or whatever. Number 2, for 1 year, you're going to need to stay away from 384 Sunset Avenue. After that, you can be around there. But if your sister and you want to spend some time together, she should come to Oak Street or you guys go somewhere else. And then number 3, I'm going to have you submit to a drug and alcohol abuse evaluation so that an expert, and I am not an expert, can make sure everything is squared away with you on that front. But if that expert determines that you may be struggling a little bit with some kind of substance abuse, they may recommend some treatment. And if they do, you'll have to follow that treatment. That doesn't mean you're going to drug court or anything like that, but I just want to have an expert kick the tires a little bit, okay?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Patel, I am willing to close out the open probation case if you and Mr. Pearson want to deal with that today, but you'd have to waive his due process notice rights because that wasn't on the agenda.
Your Honor, we'll waive his notice right and address the revocation.
Okay, so Mr. Pearson, your guilty plea in this new case is a reason to revoke your probation in your older case, the 19 SC case. And what I'm prepared to do is revoke the balance of your probation in the old case and reduce that to time served and close that case out so that you're on probation just for this new 20 SC case. You okay with that?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
So I'll sign the paperwork that takes care of that. You will still need to report to probation. And Ms. Crawford is going to give you some reporting information in just a moment. So make sure you plug in. The most important thing you're going to do after you hug your wife when you get out is to go report to probation and make sure you get signed up. That's your job. They don't find you, you go to them, okay? And is the address you plan to live at the 855 Oak Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the case number, as I understand it, for the case we're closing out is 19 SC 164246. Is that correct?
That's not correct, Judge.
Uh-oh.
The correct case number is going to be 17 SC 155026.
Well, what's that other case?
That's just a case that's inactive. That's no longer active.
Okay, so the one that was active is the 17 SC case?
17 SC 155026. 1 month and 7 days remaining.
Okay, and the 19 SC case, that's inactive.
That's correct.
Okay, well, thank you for catching that. Mr. Pearson, that doesn't change anything for you. I'm going to do the same thing, just to a different case number. 17 SC 155026. I'll revoke the balance because of this new conviction. I'll reduce that to the time you've already served. You've done plenty of time. And that'll close that case out. Okay? Ms. Hall, anything else in Mr. Pearson's case?
Nothing further from the state, Your Honor.
Ms. Patel?
Nothing further.
Okay, I'm gonna step off the bench for a minute, but I'm gonna leave, you stay right there, Mr. Pearson, because Ms. Crawford's gonna need to give you some information, and she may need to get some information from you. And when I come back, we will handle, I think we only have one person left, which should be Mr. Hudson's client, Mr. Lawson, and we'll take care of that, okay?
Your Honor, Your Honor, before you leave,
Yes.
I wanted to say if you have my authority to sign the
Oh,
indictment.
right. Let me get that on the record with Ms. Martin. Mr. Pearson, normally you'd be here in court with Ms. Patel, and you would have signed the indictment indicating that you're entering a guilty plea. We can't do that because you're there and we're here. Do you give me the authority, Mr. Pearson, to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Patel, I'm going to ask you the same. You're here, in theory, you could sign it, but I don't have the indictment because our system is ill. Do you authorize me to sign the indictment on your behalf?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. Hall, you've already been gracious enough to give me the authority to do so on your behalf. So when our printers talk to our computers again, I'll print out the indictment and I'll sign for everyone. And that's why I was telling Mr. Pearson it might be Wednesday when it gets out. But as soon as we can print that stuff out, I will take care of all that and we'll make it happen. Anything else, Ms. Hall?
Yes, one more thing, Your Honor. If it's okay with the court, Ms. McCauley is going to handle the last case. If I can be excused, that funeral I told you about.
You bet. You go do what you need to do. Again, sorry for your loss or your family or friends' loss, Ms. Hall. Thank you for sticking with us as long as you did. And when I come back in about 2 minutes, hopefully Ms. Crawford and Mr. Pearson will be done and we will turn to Mr. Hudson's case, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Judge?
Mr. Hudson.
Yes. Is it possible for me to speak briefly with Mr. Lawson while Your Honor is off the bench?
Yes. Would you like to speak to him outside the presence of the prosecutor?
Yes, Judge, if that's possible.
Sure. So what we'll do is this. Let's have Ms. Crawford and Mr. Pearson finish what they need to do. And I'll actually stay here for that. When they're done, when we get your client, Mr. Lawson, up to the microphone there, I'll move you and him into the breakout room. I'll take my break and come on back, okay?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, you can actually call us phone number over here. It's 404-612-2392, and he can talk to him on the phone. I'll just
Great. Why don't we do that instead, Mr. Hudson? So you can call 612-2392 and speak directly to Mr. Lawson. And you can start that whenever. We'll have Ms. Crawford and Mr. Pearson speak, and I will be right back, all right?
Thank you, Judge.
Bet. I haven't forgotten, Mr. Marrero. I'm gonna ask Ms. Patel to stick around for the conversation we're gonna have. This last one will be real brief. And then we're gonna figure out who's gonna represent you, okay? I appreciate your patience, but we've been around and around, and something funny happened with Ms. Cooper. Yeah. Definitely. All right.
Mr. Pearson, I'm Ms. Crawford from probation. I heard your address of 855 Oak Street. What city and your zip code is that?
Atlanta, Georgia, 30318.
You don't see cafeterias open, like, it should be, it's right around the corner. If you go out here and make that right, you see, it should be open today. It usually don't open on Fridays, which is weird. It used to be open today. I know, right? The day you need them.
You have a telephone number?
My sister number, 404-437-9774.
And what is her name?
Antoinette Smith.
Okay, I'm gonna give you your report instructions. You're still gonna report to 276 Memorial Drive. Atlanta, Georgia Southwest 30303. But I'm gonna give you your reporting instructions 48 hours after you release. So whenever they release you, 2 days after that, report to that office. If you're released on a Friday, you have to wait until the next Tuesday. So you need to report between Tuesday and Thursday, 8 o'clock in the morning or 9:30. Okay. Okay, that's it from me, okay?
Do you have a contact number?
I can give you, yeah. You're gonna have the same, I think you're gonna have the same probation officer. Let me see who your officer was. Mr. Rutherford,
All right.
is that your probation officer?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I can give you his number. It's gonna be 404-558-1047.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Have a blessed day.
You too, thank you.
This is my baby. This is my Chloe.
Precious.
She's such a good girl. Aren't you? You love Zoom calendars, huh?
Oh, I saw her chasing the fishes. I saw her chasing the TV, the fishes.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So
she sits and cries until I turn that on. She did it, she's done it every Zoom calendar I've had that I've been at home.
I've got 2 pit mixes, and everyone thinks pits are the worst, but these dogs are so loving and they're crazy, but they're extremely loving. I'm a huge dog lover.
Yeah, this is my first dog I've had of my own, but I had dogs growing up, but
Yeah.
she's just such a sweetheart.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Are you beautiful, puppy? Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Did I pinch you? Did I pinch you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry I pinched you. I'm sorry. You okay? Good? Are you okay?
Deputies to see the inspector. She'll have to court.
Guerrero coming back?
She had him go use the bathroom.
Okay.
While you were out.
As long as he's coming back.
How dare he? Kidding. No one. It wasn't the court reporter.
So we'll know they're ready when, I guess they went dark because Mr. Hudson is talking to Mr. Lawson, who has lots of old cases. And new charges. Miss McCauley, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Judge.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What do we know about the entering auto from December of last year? Was that a Fulton case or?
It is. No, I'm sorry. I think it is actually a DeKalb case. I'm going to confirm that right now.
Okay.
I think it's Brookhaven PD, which makes me think that it's DeKalb.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
I know that's not the only reason for the revocation. I think he's got some technicals too.
Yeah, do you need a copy of the warrant?
No, Miss Hall gave it to me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the main one was this arrest on December 1 for entering auto and obstruction in Brookhaven. And then,
It is a DeKalb County case. It doesn't look like it's indicted.
okay. And then no GED is the other piece.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see. Before you were able to get on the call, Mr. Hudson had said, "Wow, this one's pretty complicated." It doesn't seem so complicated, but we'll see what he and Mr. Lawson have discussed.
Okay.
There he is.
What is it?
Judge?
Sir.
Ready.
All right, let's get everyone back together. Courtroom 2 is, looks like they're about to go live. There they are. Okay. All right. Before Ms. Martin starts taking things down, Mr. Hudson, are we going to be able to engage in a substantive discussion about the case, or are we going to need to reschedule, which I'm happy to talk about, but we don't necessarily need to have the court reporter take all that down?
Judge, I can believe we can go forward in substance.
Okay.
On the issue.
Well, let's see where we get. Let's get on the record. So Ms. Martin is ready. This is position 1 on today's special hearing calendar. It's 15 SC 136630, State versus Jeremiah Lawson. Hello, Mr. Lawson.
How you doing, John?
Mr. Lawson, did you have an opportunity to speak with your lawyer, Mr. Hudson, on a private phone line a few minutes ago?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good. All right. I'm going to need you to speak up a little louder when you're answering so the court reporter can hear you. But I'm glad you and Mr. Hudson had a chance to speak. So, Mr. Lawson, you have a probation warrant, or a petition seeking the revocation of your probation, and it alleges 2 violations. One, there's an allegation that you were arrested in December of last year in Brookhaven, in DeKalb County, for entering auto and a couple other charges. And 2, there's an allegation that you have not obtained your GED, which was one of the conditions of your probation in this case from 2015, which was also an entering auto case. So I'm going to ask Mr. Hudson. Yes, sir. You have a question?
He said this case right here, I was on probation for robbery for this case right here.
Well, you have a few cases. Maybe I don't have all the information on what's in front of me. Armed robbery is a little different than what it says on the petition. So why don't we take a step back? The case ending in 630.
Oh, no.
Is that an armed robbery case, Ms. McCauley?
No.
Okay.
The original offenses? No.
Okay. What's the armed robbery that Mr. Lawson's talking about?
Oh, it must be dropped.
I don't know exactly. And my Odyssey is down, so I can't look him up.
Well, everyone's Odyssey is down.
Yeah. So
Mr. Hudson.
there may be another case out there. But all I have is the entering auto on the original petition, or on the original case.
Ms. Crawford, is there some case we also ought to be talking about where Mr. Lawson is looking at on armed robbery charge?
Judge, the only case I have active on file for Mr. Lawson is the 15 SC case. That's the only case that he has with us.
All right, Mr. Hudson, any insight into why Mr. Lawson's talking about armed robbery?
Yes, Judge. So there was an arrest for armed robbery. I believe that was back in 2015. I first became involved with Mr. Lawson in 2018, April 2018, where he was already on probation. And it was my understanding at that point in time that the armed robbery had been reduced to a robbery. And he had pled as a first offender to that and received a period of probation. That was with Judge Downs.
Okay. Well, there are two other cases listed on the calendar as related cases for Mr. Lawson. Maybe one of those is what we're talking about. But like Ms. McCauley, I get nothing obviously right now. So I'm relying on Ms. Crawford. She says there's not an open active case for Mr. Lawson. So the only case for which he has any probation exposure, if you will, is the one we're talking about, the one that ends in 630. And it sounds like one of the conditions in that case was that Mr. Lawson was to obtain his GED. And obviously a condition was don't get arrested. And the allegation is that he got arrested. Before we push on, Ms. Crawford, how much time remains on probation in this 15 SC case?
Judge, he has 3 years, 6 months, and 27 days remaining.
Wow, what was the sentence in this entering auto case?
Can you repeat that, Judge? Are you?
Yes, my question was, what was his sentence in the 630 case?
Let me pull it up for you. Give me a moment.
Okay. While that's happening, Mr. Hudson, again, the two allegations against Mr. Lawson are one, that he was arrested for entering auto and other charges in DeKalb, and two, he did not get his GED. Is Mr. Lawson admitting to those allegations or is he contesting them?
So at this point, Judge, as it relates to not obtaining the GED, we will admit to that. As for the entering auto, at this point, we are sort of willing to admit, and the only hesitation that I have is that that is a DeKalb County case. I've not been appointed to represent him in that case. I have very little information about that case other than what Mr. Lawson has shared with me. And my understanding also is that still at this point in time, that DeKalb County case has not been indicted. That's the information that I have.
Okay, I have the same information that is unindicted. And I want to emphasize the allegation in the petition is that Mr. Lawson was arrested for those offenses, not that he committed them. And so it may be that he, through your representation, is prepared to admit that he was in fact arrested for those things, not that he actually committed those things. That may be a matter for DeKalb to work through if and when they indict or accuse Mr. Lawson for those offenses. I'm just trying to sort out for purposes of today, whether he's admitting the allegations in the petition, and then we can hear your recommendation, Mr. Hudson, and Ms. McCauley's recommendation as to how we would sort through this. But I would not view the admission that he was arrested as an admission that he did any of those things.
Yes, Your Honor, we are prepared to admit that he was arrested for, I believe it's an entering auto, loitering, and obstruction.
Okay. All right. So let's talk then about what you think ought to happen, Mr. Hudson. I don't know how long Mr. Lawson's been in custody as a result of this, but why don't you tell me that and what you think we ought to do?
Sure. So Mr. Lawson, he was arrested in the city of Brookhaven on December the 1st of 2019. He's been in, from what I can tell, continuous custody. He received a bond in DeKalb County. I'm assuming somewhere around July of this year, maybe July 17th. And he was brought directly to Fulton County, where he's been. I would also point out to Your Honor that he does have a hold in Sumter County. That is an older case, prior to 2017 case. It's pretty old, it's a juvenile case. That was supposed to have been sorted out, I guess when he entered this plea, but for whatever reason it wasn't. So he still has that hold in Sumter County. And I believe that that's going to be a relatively easy fix once he gets down there, but that is still out there. So he's not looking at being released immediately. He'll still have to serve time there. As it relates to the GED requirement, Judge, can I go ahead and speak on these issues?
You can. Let me ask you a question first. What are the charges underlying the case in Sumter County, if you know?
I'm not certain, Judge. It was a juvenile case, and I'm just actually learning about it.
Do I know what the charges are? It originated, Mr. Hudson is correct, it did originate out of the Sumter YDC. And it is 1 count of cruelty to children in the 1st degree, 1 count of aggravated assault, and 3 counts of aggravated battery. The incident date is August 21st of 2017. And from what I can tell from, it looks like it was an incident that occurred within the corrections facility. And it is indicted. It was actually on a calendar call for June 8th.
In
2020. In Sumter County, yeah.
Okay, all right. So Mr. Lawson was in a YDC for some juvenile case, and while there, he did these things. Has he? I assume he's pled guilty, or the hold is he's never dealt with those charges.
It does not appear that he's ever dealt with these charges.
Okay. So he will go down there to deal with those charges when we've sorted his case out. Got it. Okay. Talk to me about the GED.
Yes, Your Honor. So Mr. Lawson actually made some gains in obtaining his GED. At the time that he was originally placed on probation, he was working with Ms. Gwendolyn Sands, if you remember Ms. Sands, with Visions Unlimited. And he was doing well with her. In fact, he had taken all of his tests for the GED except for math. And that's the only one that remains. And he struggles a bit with math. And so it's taken him a bit longer to obtain that final passage for the mathematics portion of the GED. He is working towards it, or has been working towards it, but he's also been employed since he's been out working for UPS. And so with the combination of his employment taking up time, it's been a little bit more difficult for him to focus on the final portion of the GED, the mathematics exam.
Okay.
But that is the only issue with his GED. And he is prepared to, since he's been in custody, work towards that.
Yeah, it seems like the last 6 months would have been a great time to do some of the math work. What's your recommendation, Mr. Hudson, as to how we ought to work through these violations that he's admitting to?
Well, I would recommend, I guess my numbers are changing a bit, but anywhere between 9 months to a year, but more 9 months. He's been in custody for about that period of time, Judge. I think 9 months is probably appropriate. And I say that, and I understand we have another entering auto here, but the circumstances surrounding that arrest are essentially Mr. Lawson was outside of a car rental dealership, an enterprise, I believe. And officers with Brookhaven Police approached him and just said that he fit the description of an individual who they had seen breaking into cars, or who was reported to be breaking into cars. And following some back and forth with the officers, they decided to arrest him for entering auto. That's all the information that I have on that case, Judge. And without having more, I really don't know sort of the strength of the state's case. If there is video footage, I'm not aware of that. If we're just going on, he fit the description of a person, I believe that's pretty weak evidence, even given his history. And so under those circumstances, I believe that a 9-month revocation, he would go down to Sumter and deal with his issues there, and still have to come back here at some point to deal with the case in DeKalb County.
Okay. Mr. Lawson, have you been in jail either in DeKalb or here in Fulton since December when you got arrested by the Brookhaven Police?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. McCauley, your thoughts about resolving Mr. Lawson's case?
So, Your Honor, the state's recommendation would be a year, to revoke a year. I don't know the strength of the DeKalb case, to be perfectly honest. I have not reviewed it, but what the state's position is, Mr. Lawson's been on probation since 2015, 5 years, has had ample opportunity to get his GED and to finish those classes, and instead has actually racked up 2 additional cases. There's the new entering auto from Brookhaven from 2019. Then there's also a multi-count entering auto that originates from March of 2018, also in DeKalb County. So I guess the state's a little frustrated with why we're just now turning the corner on the GED program. And I think that in light of his 2 new cases and the fact that he hasn't completed the terms of his probation, that a year is appropriate.
The 2018 multi-count entering auto,
Yep.
Is that also an arrest that has not matured into an indictment, or is there an open case, meaning?
It's indicted. It's indicted. The indictment number is 19 CR 4086. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 counts of entering auto and 1 count of interference with government property.
And Mr. Lawson has a bond on that case, or why is there not?
He did. He did have a bond. He bonded out. It looks like, it looks like 318, 2020, or 8/17/2018. Yeah, I think he bonded out sometime between 2018 and the case getting charged in 2019.
Okay.
He was released on March 31st, 2019.
Yeah.
So somehow that did not result, that indictment, so it would be an arrest and an indictment, that did not result in a probation warrant for this case.
No.
But the arrest in Brookhaven did. Okay. All right. Ms. Crawford, have you been able to figure out when what Mr. Lawson's sentence was in this case? I know he's got 3 years and a few months left.
Judge, he was sentenced to 10 years, served 3 years with a balance of 7 years on probation.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I think I understand this a little bit better. Mr. Lawson, is home for you in DeKalb or is it in Fulton?
Fulton County, Your Honor.
Okay.
I have family that reside in DeKalb, Canada.
All right. Well, Mr. Lawson, I do find that you violated the terms of your probation by, more importantly, getting arrested in Brookhaven for another entering auto allegation. I appreciate Mr. Hudson's observation, which I assume he got partly from talking with you, that you may well have a good defense of, I was just standing around and the police just grabbed the closest guy who purportedly fit a description. It does come on the heels of an 8-count entering auto indictment that is open and active in DeKalb County. So you and autos aren't mixing real well. The GED, I think, is more frustrating than alarming. It's something you need to knock out. I guess it was good that you were doing well with Visions Unlimited. I don't think that's a program that's available to you anymore. It's certainly not a program that many judges here sponsor or connect with anymore. But that is something you're going to want to take care of eventually. But I do find there is a basis to revoke your probation. It sounds like you've got more important and pressing business waiting for you in Sumter County. And someday DeKalb may figure out that they need to get you back to DeKalb to work through the case that's been indicted and then the case that they haven't yet formally charged. And then how old are you now, Mr. Lawson?
19, Your Honor.
19, okay. How long did you stay in prison, if you went to prison, and maybe where you went was YDC, as a result of this case, the one we're talking about, where you got 10 served 3?
3 years and all.
You did all 3 years? So you're 19. Did you go in when you were 15 or 16?
14. I was 14.
You went to a YDC?
Oh, no, I went to YDC when I was 16, so I did a year in YDC. I did a year.
And then you moved over to an adult facility?
I did 2 years in Metro RYDC, and then they shipped me to YDC for a year.
All for entering auto?
Yes, Your Honor.
Wow. Okay. There may be a deeper story to that, but I trust you would know that better than anyone else on this call. So, Mr. Lawson, you are a young man with a whole bunch of years ahead of you, and I hope sooner rather than later you find a way to get out of this, what appears to be, unfortunately, a cycle or a routine for you, where you get out, then you get mixed up into breaking into cars, and then you go back in again. I don't know if you've got kids, but it sounds like you've got family and they want you around, and you're not making it easy for them to have you around with some of the choices you're making. But I get it, that it's complicated out there, and you may not have had a whole lot of breaks as you were growing up. Mr. Lawson, I am going to revoke 1 year of your probation. I will reinstate the balance, and I will. You tell me, Mr. Lawson. I don't mean for you to trip over some of the conditions. The condition that will always be there is you got to stay out of trouble. Getting a GED is a helpful thing, but if getting a GED for you is going to be real complicated, I'm willing to remove that condition. I don't want you to have to get in front of a judge again because you didn't do the math part. It'd be great if you got a GED, but it needs to not be a forced march. You tell me whether you want to keep that condition or you think it makes more sense for me to remove it.
I was really leaning. I was gonna go to open campus to get my high school diploma.
Okay. So should we keep that condition? There's not a time limit on it. You don't have to do it in 1 month or 3 months, but it's something that you'll need to demonstrate that you are making progress towards. So, and it was either, it was GED or the high school diploma. Should we keep that condition in there as an incentive to keep pushing?
Yes, Your Honor, I keep.
Okay. All right, then I won't modify your probation. I'll leave it as is. What I will do, just so that you don't have to come back here on this case, is that I will find as a basis for the revocation, not only your arrest in Brookhaven, but also your indictment in 19 CR 4086. So you've got this other DeKalb case, and I am factoring that into the year's revocation. I think it's something that justifiably got Ms. McCauley a little more concerned about your situation, and it weighed on me, and I don't want you to have to deal with that twice here in Fulton. So I would ask Ms. Crawford, in filling out the revocation order that I'll sign, that you are being revoked not only for the Brookhaven arrest last December, but also that older indictment. But I can do that, Mr. Hudson, only if you're willing to waive the due process notice rights. That was not a basis in the petition. And if you want me to back that out, I will. But I worry that it might get Mr. Lawson caught in a loop where people put 2 and 2 together and they say, oh, here's another reason to bring him back for a revocation.
We'll waive, Your Honor.
Okay, then we'll wrap all that up. You'll still have a little bit of probation left here in Fulton. My hope is, Mr. Lawson, you can get down to Sumter County, deal with that, and then eventually DeKalb's going to want to see you. By then, you may be 21, and you'll be, by all legal measures, an adult. And hopefully you'll be able to step into those shoes a little bit more effectively than you have in the past. Do you have any questions, Mr. Lawson?
Yes, do I have to serve the year? Do I serve the year here, or what do I serve? County time?
No, in fact, when I sign the order, I think you will be able then to get on your way to Sumter County.
Okay.
But I don't decide those things. But I said a year rather than 12 months, even though those are the same, because if it's measured in years, then typically you are eligible for transport. I will tell you that right now, the Department of Corrections is not grabbing folks. They're not moving people back and forth. But I'm less interested in that than seeing if we can get you down to Sumter County to deal with that case. That's not going away. The sooner you get down there, the better, and get a lawyer helping you with that. Ms. McCauley, did you have anything else in Mr. Lawson's case?
Nothing for the state, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Hudson?
Just for clarification, Judge, would that be a year with credit for the time that he's been in?
Yes, sir. Yeah, credit from December 1, 2019.
That's all, Judge. Thank you.
Okay.
How long I got left on probation? 2 more years left?
Well, you'll have 2 more years of probation left. You have like 3 or 4 months left of your revocation.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Crawford, do you need to talk to Mr. Lawson at all, or because he's not going to be released right away, he's good to go?
It's good to go, Judge.
Okay, great. Well, then I think we're done. Thank you, jail staff. Ms. McCauley, I need you to stay on if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay, but thank you to all jail staff for making this happen. I know we had to take folks slightly out of order. Thank you, Mr. Hudson, for your patience. You were on first, as you should have been, because you're supposed to deal with Mr. Lawson first. He may have been in a different location at the jail, so it took a little while to get him here. And thank you, Ms. Martin, for all your help today.
Judge,
yes.
may I ask a quick question on an unrelated matter?
Yeah, Ms. Martin, you're done.
Okay, thank you.
It's actually why I thought Ms. Nelson was calling this morning.
Okay.
But we have a DeJuan Cannon. That is a multiple defendant homicide case. And per the court scheduling order, we were to have motions on the 12th. And I'm not certain if that's still going forward or.
The 12th as in 2 days from now?
Yes.
I don't think that's going forward. Had you filed motions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, let me look. I've got drug court, but I think we're moving that. Ms. Nelson, do you have an update on the Dewan Cannon case? She can't look anything up right now. Why
I
don't you?
think, going by memory, I thought that someone asked for extended time, and don't know if it was the state. And I think,
yes.
Okay.
Was there something they hadn't provided yet, Mr. Hudson?
They asked for extended time for discovery because apparently there was, and I filed a motion to oppose that, by the way, but apparently there was a firearm that was found at the time of the shooting.
Yes. And they want to see if there are fingerprints on it and this and that. Why don't we do this? Why don't we have a status phone call? It doesn't have to be Zoom. It can just be audio, where we get Mr. Pinion on the phone and all the defense attorneys, and we figure out what we need to do with the case. You do not need to come to court on Wednesday the 12th. I think I have just sort of tabled Mr. Pinion's request because lots of folks on both sides of the V have said, I need a little more time because things are complicated right now. Let's figure out a time when we can get everyone on the phone to sort out what the right way is to move Mr. Cannon's case forward, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. So we've got about 3 minutes. We have Mr. Marrero here, and Ms. McCauley, just a 2-second update on Mr. Marrero. Okay. Mr. Marrero is charged with aggravated assault, aggravated battery. The charges don't matter so much as the question of representation. Ms. Patel, who's sitting in court, at one point was going to represent him, but her office determined that Mr. Marrero did not qualify for the public defender. And so Mr. Marrero thought that he had obtained Waylon Sims. Is that the correct name? Yeah, Mr. Sims. Mr. Marrero had interacted with a colleague of Mr. Sims, a Ms. Wanda Cooper, who I believe is a disbarred lawyer, who continues to occasionally claim that she is an attorney. Mr. Sims has shared with us that he uses Ms. Cooper as sort of a legal assistant in certain ways. But Mr. Sims has since withdrawn. He filed a motion, I've granted it. Mr. Sims disavows any knowledge of Mr. Marrero. That doesn't mean Ms. Cooper doesn't know Mr. Marrero. But we need to sort out today how we're going to move Mr. Marrero's case forward solely in terms of who's going to represent him. So I don't think you're going to need to do anything, but Mr. Marrero was here because I was going to issue a bench warrant for him because he kept not showing up for court. But that was partly because we had some bad addresses and we would send notice to a lawyer who was saying, I don't represent him. So he's here, he showed up on time. We'll take care of the bench warrant. I just need you to be listening because the state needs to be, so it's not ex parte. So Mr. Marrero, this is really just you and me talking. Ms. Patel is here to chime in insofar as the public defender's office may have a perspective. But it's my understanding that you earn enough, or at least you did when your case was first indicted, that you did not qualify for representation by the public defender's office. And so you obtained, you thought, the services of Waylon Sims. And my understanding is you even paid some money. Whether Mr. Sims ever saw that money or not, I don't know. And that's a separate issue. You may have a valid legal claim against Ms. Cooper or Attorney Sims. I'm not going to get in the middle of that, but Mr. Sims doesn't represent you. He's asked to be removed from the case, and I've granted that. So I need to find out from you, are you going to find a different attorney? And if you're not, why not?
I used to, due to them laying me off, but partially I'm on unemployment right now.
Okay. When did you last work?
Last work, I worked like yesterday, like once a week, twice a week. To bring us back, I work in the food industry, like we call it conventions.
Okay.
That's rare nowadays.
It is very rare these days. I don't know who's having a convention. But it sounds like your work is at best intermittent. And so your paychecks are small and infrequent. Ms. Patel, are people able to reapply with changed circumstances, or if they exceeded the income threshold once, they're forever barred?
He can reapply. He just has to go to our office with a $50 money order.
Okay.
That if he's accepted, they will take the money order. If not, they'll give it back.
Okay. So, and you may have done that before, Mr. Marrero, but you need to do it again. Everyone has to pay that fee, that little threshold piece. And if you are accepted, as you heard Ms. Patel say, you get the public defender's office keeps that as your contribution. If the answer is you still make too much, even though you're working only part-time, get your money back because they're not helping you. I need to give you a pretty tight deadline to do that because your case has languished. And I'm not blaming you. I just want to make sure we are making progress with your case. I'm guessing you'd like to get this out of the way as well, whatever getting it out of the way means. A plea, maybe the state reduces the charges. Maybe you go to jail for 100 years. I don't know how that will work, but we can't do any of that until there's a lawyer able to advocate on your behalf, okay? How much time do you need to pull together a $50 money order and get to the public defender's office to resubmit an application? Okay, and you think you could have that money order by tomorrow? Okay, fantastic. Then why don't do you want to have Mr. Marrero get on a inquiry or status calendar in a couple weeks? Is that too soon? I don't know how quickly.
No, I mean, I know that Ms. Hall had, I think that there had been a resolution that just was never conveyed to the client for whatever reason. With that being said,
how about
do we
this?
have any inquiry or status calendars?
Even better, why don't you let Ms. Nelson know by the end of this week if you're going to be representing Mr. Marrero? Because if the answer is yes, you and Ms. Hall can talk, and then you can tell Ms. Nelson, hey, we've sorted this case out. We'll figure out a way, whether Mr. Marrero's coming in or if it's virtual, he can call in.
Right.
If your office isn't going to be able to represent him, then Ms. Nelson and Mr. Marrero have to communicate, because then we'll need to have a different conversation. So assuming you'll be taking over the case for Mr. Marrero, once you know that, by the end of the week, you let Ms. Nelson know, and then you, Ms. Hall, speak, and then you can let Ms. Nelson know the right next step is X. Whether that's a inquiry calendar because you need to fuss a little bit, they haven't gotten discovery, or it's VPTI.
Right.
On my head. Right. Okay. Mr. Marrero, do you have any questions about that plan?
This mother thing, yeah, do I have any evidence of the warrant lifted?
I'll take care of that today. I'm the one who issued it. I'm the one who can lift it. So I'll get Ms. Nelson, who I think you talked to on the phone.
Yeah, I talked to her.
That's my case manager. Be nice to her. But she will be waiting to hear from Ms. Patel by the end of the week. And if the PD's office is going to take over your case, then Ms. Nelson will be talking with Ms. Patel. If you make too much, even though it's intermittent, then Ms. Nelson will be reaching back out to you. We have a good address for you now?
Yeah, I do have one, and I want to see the address for the office too.
We don't mail stuff to the office. We mail stuff to your
I got
office.
the office for the defender's office to go away and pay them.
Oh, Ms. Patel will give you that. She'll give you that. Because I got a scoop, but I just want to make sure we close the loop. So the plan is Ms. Patel's going to let Ms. Nelson know by the end of the week she's taking over your case, or she can't. If she is taking it over, then all you need to do is keep in touch with Ms. Patel. You want to leave her a phone number, all the ways to reach you, email. You need to make it easy for Ms. Patel to find you. And maybe she's got great news because the state really, really wants to work your case out. I don't know. That's for you all to negotiate, and then we'll get you back in here sometime soon, okay? I'll take care of the warrant.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ms. McCauley. You did a great job. All right. I'm going to end the call unless there's anything else going on. Thanks, Calvin Schofield, whoever you are. Appreciate you being on the call.